Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto watches a One Piece. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by ASURA 435 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. I accidentally invent a black hole, oops. Let me just start by saying. It was not my fault. I mean, sure, maybe I helped build the teleportation kunai that trepped a hole in the fabric of space-time and dumped us into an ocean filled with monsters the size of Bunta, but that doesn't mean I'm to blame. Technically. Besides, it was Tenten's idea. Okay, back up. We were in Suna. You know, giant desert village, very hot, lots of sand in very uncomfortable places. We just saved Gaara, the red-haired sand-controlling Kazukiage who used to be kind of murdery, but now is just intense. The Akatsuki stole the one tail from him, but we got him back before he completely kicked the bucket. You're welcome, Suna. Anyway, everyone was there. Team Guy, Team Asuma, even Team Kurenai. Pretty much half of Konoha showed up like it was some kind of ninja family reunion but with more PTSD. And me? I was just trying to see my old buddy Gaara, maybe share a bowl of ramen, talk about our trauma. You know, normal bro stuff. But then Tenten pulled me aside. Tenten, if you don't know her, think ninja blacksmith with weapon ADHD. She could probably arm a small country from her scrolls alone. She also has this very specific obsession. Mythical weapons of world-ending power. Yeah. Totally healthy. So Naruto, she whispered, eyes gleaming like she just found the secret ingredient to explody soup, I've got an idea. What if we build a weapon that teleports to you or teleports you to it? And because I have the brain of someone who jumps off cliffs and figures out how to land on the way down, I said. Heck yeah, let's do it. 2 days of working with explosive seals, forbidden ink, and probably enough chakra to make a baby-tailed beast later, we had it. A modified kunai modeled after my idol the fourth Hokage himself, I mean Minato-sensei. I was ready to test it. Everyone was there. Tenten, grinning like she just set the world on fire. Niji, arms crossed and silently judging us. Lee doing one-handed push-ups while watching. Gaara, still pale from, you know, dying recently. Even Kiba and Shino showed up. It was like the worst science fair ever. Okay, I said, channeling chakra into the seal, here goes. I threw the kunai. Instead of it flying back to my hand like a good little murder knife, I got yanked toward it and slammed right into Gaara who, thankfully, caught me in a sand pillow before I broke something important. Not ideal, but hey, I was alive. Then came attempt number 2. Tenten made some seal adjustments. It's ready now, she said with total confidence, which in hindsight should have been a warning sign. I activated it again. This time. Boom. Giant, swirling black hole. Screaming wind. A whole 100-meter radius of Suna gone. Sand, kunai, 2 scorpions, and us. All sucked in like we were popcorn kernels in a chakra-powered vacuum. The next thing I know. I'm falling through the sky. Blue everywhere. Ocean below. Definitely not the desert. We're gonna die. I screamed in a very brave and manly way. Calm yourself, Naruto, Niji said, somehow not panicking mid-fall. He activated his Byakugan. There are creatures below massive. As large as Boss Dode. Maybe Biju class. Of course there are. Because why not? So yeah, we teleported to another world. An ocean world. With sea monsters. I'm soaking wet. So remember how I said we fell into the ocean? Yeah, it got worse. Giant eel monsters started circling like we were a Buffett special. Giant octopuses, octopi, octopodes. Whatever, rose up with squiggly arms like they were ready to play ninja whack-a-mole. A shark the size of the Hokage monument leapt out of the sea, flashing more teeth than Kiba on a good day. Oh, and birds. Giant, feathery, screaming ones. Because clearly the universe decided today was Attack the Ninja Day. Bad choice, universe. Brace yourselves. I shouted, charging up a wind release. Rasengan in my hand. It hummed with chakra and sliced the air like it was made of lightning. Niji moved first, of course. Guys like a chakra sniper. 8 trigrams vacuum palm. He yelled, and boom, one eel exploded into sushi. I think Lee cried a little. That was beautiful. He wailed. Rasengan. I launched mine into a shark thing. It spun, screeched, and just imploded. Not gonna lie, that was kinda cool. And a little scary. Note to self. Don't use that on friends. Gaara, being Gaara, didn't say a word. He just raised his hand and unleashed 100 sand spears like it was no big deal. The sky rained sand. The octopus got skewered. The birds turned into feather dust. Gross, Kiba muttered, wrinkling his nose. You smell worse, Shino said calmly, because apparently getting attacked by prehistoric sea monsters wasn't enough to stop him from throwing shade. Ara raised a massive platform of sand, hardening it under us. We clambered on, dripping wet and slightly traumatized. Everyone was breathing hard except Guy and Lee, who were already challenging each other to push-up contests on the sand. "I'll do 500. Lee declared, his eyes sparkling. "Guy-sensei, will you match me?" "Of course, Lee. In the spirit of youth, I shall do 600. Guy bellowed, striking a pose that somehow involved jazz hands. Kakashi sighed so hard I think his soul briefly left his body. "Can we not die from second-hand embarrassment today? Please. Hinata, can you scout?" Kurenai asked gently, ignoring the madness. Hinata nodded quickly. "Byakugan." Her veins bulged out around her eyes in that slightly terrifying way and she scanned the endless blue. Everyone went quiet as she focused. After a long minute, she said, "There's land about 18 kilometers that way." She pointed northeast. We all collectively sighed in relief. "In that case, forward march," Kakashi said, waving lazily. Ara steered the sand platform silently. Everyone gathered around, some sitting cross-legged, some standing with arms crossed. I sat down next to Sakura and Tenten, wringing water out of my jacket. "So," Asuma started, lighting a cigarette that somehow stayed dry, "ninja magic. Anyone recognize anything?" "Not even close," Shikamaru said, rubbing the back of his neck. "None of those sea creatures exist back home. Not in the elemental nations. And believe me, I pay attention to anything that could randomly eat me." "Could we have ended up on another continent?" Choji asked, chewing anxiously on some soggy chips he'd somehow salvaged. "Maybe," Shino said, adjusting his sunglasses. "But even the chakra signatures of the beasts were unusual." "No chakra network like ours," Hinata added quietly. "More raw instinct. Less purpose. And bigger teeth," Kiba said, nudging Akamaru, who was shivering miserably under a blanket of sand. Sakura looked worried. "Could the Akatsuki have done this? Some kind of trap?" Everyone turned toward Kakashi, who had that look he gets when he's connecting 1,000 dots at once behind the mask. "Unlikely," Kakashi said eventually. "This feels accidental. If they'd built a trap, they wouldn't leave us here with giant monsters. They'd come to finish the job." "So we're lost because of your science experiment," Ino said, raising an eyebrow at me and Tenten. "Hey," I said, throwing up my hands. "It was an accidental black hole. Those happen all the time." "Probably." Tenten, to her credit, looked proud instead of guilty. "The important thing is, the weapon works." "Sort of." "The fine works," Niji muttered. "You're still alive, aren't you?" She shot back. "Barely," Shikamaru groaned. I clapped his hands loudly. "No time for gloom, my youthful friends. A great adventure lies ahead." Lee immediately jumped to his feet, fists clenched. "I am ready for anything. Pirates, sea monsters, mysterious treasures." I stared at him. "Why are you specifically mentioning pirates?" Lee beamed. "Because. There is always a chance of pirates when there are oceans involved." Shikamaru groaned louder. "Wonderful. Just what we need. Pirates." Asuma took a drag of his cigarette. "I'm more worried about food and water." "Same," Choji said through a mouthful of chips. "Land first, survival later," Kurenai said. We kept moving, the sand platform gliding smoothly over the endless ocean. The land Hinata had spotted was getting closer, but we were all on edge. We finally spotted land after what felt like 10,000 years of riding a giant sand hoverboard. At first, we were all cheering like maniacs. Land. Food. Dry clothes. Actual toilets. Until we got closer and realized things were off. For starters, there was a giant archway at the harbor and it had the words Lobe Town painted on it in big fancy letters. Never heard of it. Ever. The town looked normal-ish, crowded streets, colorful market stalls, kids running around throwing rotten fruit at each other, classic, but the people were speaking some weird language that sounded like a cat and a bird were having a very passionate argument. "Anyone understand that?" Asuma asked, arms crossed. Everyone shook their heads, even Kakashi, who usually spoke like 1,000 dialects, because of course he did. "I got this," Ino said, cracking her knuckles like a surgeon about to perform a brain transplant. Which, to be fair, she kinda was. She closed her eyes and with a small puff of chakra, slipped into the mind of some poor fisherman passing by. The guy blinked, swayed a little, and then kept walking like nothing happened. Total professional hit. Ino smirked. "Easy." I pulled the language center out of his memories. "Transferring it now." She pressed her fingers to our foreheads one by one. It felt like someone poured a bucket of alphabet soup into my brain, but hey, now the bird cat sounds made sense. "Pirates this, pirates that," Tenten muttered, eavesdropping on a group of sailors. "And something about a world government." We all kinda stood there blinking at each other. "World government?" Sakura repeated, as if the words themselves were cursed. "Never heard of it," Shikamaru said. "And I would've. That's the kind of boring political stuff I usually have to study." Pirates are supposed to be small-time criminals, not whatever this is, Kiba added, scratching his head. Gaara, ever the calm one, said, we're not in the elemental nations anymore. Leave it to Gaara to drop that bomb like he was ordering a sandwich. Kakashi sighed. Different world. Wonderful. So the black hole didn't just teleport us, Choji said slowly. It yeeted us into another dimension. That's the technical term, yes, Kakashi said, straight-faced. We found a quiet alleyway to huddle up because nothing screams let's plan a way home like whispering next to a dumpster that smelled suspiciously like squid ink and broken dreams. So do we risk making another black hole? Naruto asked, looking at me and Tenten. Tenten looked ready to argue for it. Like, immediately. I mean, we know what went wrong, she said brightly. Probably. Maybe. Maybe. Niji said, one eyebrow climbing to the stratosphere. We just need to adjust the stabilization seals, increase the dimensional anchors, realign the chakra resonance, and pray to every deity we've ever heard of, she said in one breath. Right, Shikamaru said. In other words. It'll either work or it'll blow us into cosmic dust. It's worth a try. Tenten said. Otherwise we're stuck here. Hinata fidgeted, looking nervous. Should we try to learn more first? About this world? She's got a point, Kurenai agreed. We don't know the rules here. We don't know who's in power, who's dangerous or how common chakra users are. They're not, Shino said simply. I haven't sensed a single chakra signature like ours. Just life force. Very different. And if we start slinging jutsu around, Asuma added, we might end up getting the wrong kind of attention. Or the right kind, Lee said, bouncing on his heels. We could challenge their greatest warriors to a duel of strength and honor. Everyone. Awkward silence. We're not doing that, Kakashi said quickly. But. No Lee. I leaned back against the alley wall, folding my arms. So learn first, black hole later. That sounds reasonable, Gaara said. I hate reasonable, I muttered. Agreed, Kiba grumbled. But deep down, we all knew it was the smart move. We were stranded in a strange world where pirates were apparently celebrities and a government ruled everything with an iron fist. And something told me this was just the beginning of the crazy. Chapter 2. Rule number 1 of surviving in a weird pirate world. Don't smell like wet dog. Which is why, the second we dragged ourselves out of the ocean and onto the docks, we used chakra to heat our bodies and dry our clothes. Instant human hairdryers. Sure, it made us smell a little like burnt socks for a few minutes, but at least we weren't dripping saltwater like a bunch of sad sea monsters. After our little alleyway meeting/crisis, we had a plan. Sort of. Step 1. Find someone who knew about teleportation or anything remotely related to getting home without creating a black hole and turning into spaghetti. Step 2. Naruto and Tenten would keep working on fixing the black hole kunai, preferably somewhere they couldn't destroy a city block by accident. Step 3. Steal a map from the local marines. Step 4. Steal a ship. Step 5. Steal some cash, because our money was as useless here as a chocolate teapot. We were basically pirates now. Ninja pirates. Ninja pirates with questionable morals and excellent hair. Kurenai and Ino volunteered for step 3. Charming, read. Brain hacking, some poor marine into handing over a map. Between Kurenai's genjutsu and Ino's mind reading, it wasn't even a fair fight. The marines wouldn't even know they'd been robbed. Probably just think they had a weird dream about pink-haired tax collectors. The rest of us divided up into 2 groups. Group rob the rich. Naruto, Kiba, Niji, Shikamaru, Choji, and Sakura. Group steal the ship. Kakashi, Asuma, Gaara, Kankuro, Shino, Lee, Tenten, Guy, and Hinata. It says something about us that nobody even blinked at those group names. Thankfully, unlike poor stranded travelers in movies, we didn't need to beg for clothes. Every ninja worth their salt carries a spare wardrobe because you never know when you'll be set on fire, drowned, exploded, or all 3 at once. Between that and Tenten's walking armory of doom backpack, we were more than set for basic supplies. Food, though? That was another matter. Choji was already looking at street vendors like they were slow-moving deep-fried cows. And unless we wanted to pay in monopoly money, we needed local currency. Okay, Naruto said, cracking his knuckles. Let's rob some rich jerks. Kiba howled quietly in agreement. Sakura sighed like she already regretted her life choices. Let's be smart about it, Niji said, activating his Byakugan with a lazy flick of chakra. His eyes turned that pale, glowing white that basically screamed I can see through walls and also your soul. Shikamaru shrugged. Find someone loaded, raid their safe easy peasy. Why am I here again? Sakura muttered. You're the muscle, Naruto said cheerfully. And the sensible one. If Kiba and I try to do this alone, we'll end up burning down a bakery or something. Kiba gave a completely unconvincing offended noise. We would not. Sakura just sighed again. Meanwhile, across town, the ship theft task force was already casing the docks. "We need something fast," Guy said, sparkling heroically in the sunlight. "Something worthy of the flames of youth." Lee fist pumped so hard he nearly dislocated a shoulder. Fenton rolled her eyes. "We need something small and inconspicuous, not a battleship with fireworks shooting out the sides. Preferably something that can sail with a small crew," Kakashi added lazily, flipping open his Makeout Paradise book. How did he even find a version in this world's language so fast? It was better not to ask. Bara said nothing, but honestly, with his sand powers, he could probably be the ship if we needed one. Shino just silently pointed out a sleek-looking schooner docked a little further down, half hidden behind some larger cargo vessels. Low profile, fast, nothing fancy. In other words. Perfect. "We can take it at night," Asuma said, rubbing his chin. "Minimal guards. We'll have Kankuro distract them with his puppets, then we board and Gaara gets us out of the harbor before anyone notices." "Hinata, can you keep a lookout with your Byakugan?" Kakashi asked. Hinata nodded, blushing slightly. "Yes, sensei." Eye sparkled again. Teamwork. Determination. Grand Theft Maritime. Everyone else. Awkward silence. "Please never say that again," Kankuro said, deadpan. Meanwhile, back with Group Rob the Rich, we'd found our target. A sprawling mansion at the edge of town with walls higher than most prisons and a fountain shaped like a man punching a giant fish. Pirates are weird, okay. Byakugan check. No chakra traps, no seals, just a few bored-looking guards and one very fat, very rich dude napping inside. "Bingo," Naruto whispered, grinning. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. "We're going to regret this." "Probably," Sakura agreed. "But let's make it quick." Niji disabled the guards with exactly 2 pressure point taps each. They collapsed like deflated beach balls. Naruto slipped through the window like a sneaky orange shadow, with Kiba and Akamaru following. Choji accidentally knocked over a suit of armor, but somehow nobody woke up. I was starting to think our luck stat was broken. 5 minutes later, we were sprinting back through the alleys with bags of gold, jewelry, and what looked like a golden fish statue. I had no idea what we'd do with it, but hey, it looked expensive. Naruto laughed as he vaulted over a barrel. "Man, we're good at this." Sakura glared. "Don't get cocky. We still have to find the others and get off this island before someone realizes we exist." But even she couldn't hide the tiny smile tugging at her lips. "Look, we're ninja. We have a lot of skills. Assassination. Check. Espionage. Double check. Stealth. Triple check with a bonus sticker. Organization responsible handling of stolen treasure, filing things neatly without punching each other. Yeah, not exactly in the top 10. Which was why, after successfully robbing the local king of ugly fountain statues, we all stood around in a shady alley like a bunch of kids who just found a treasure chest and had no clue what to do with it. "We can't carry all this around," Sakura hissed, looking at the glittering pile of coins, jewels, and extremely cursed-looking artifacts we dumped onto a ratty blanket. "Why not?" Naruto said, stuffing gold into his pockets like a squirrel hoarding acorns. "Because we'll get caught, genius," she snapped, slapping his hand away. Kiba was too busy admiring a ruby the size of a meatball to contribute. Choji had found a gold box and was sniffing it suspiciously like it might contain snacks. Niji, as usual, was pretending none of this chaos was happening and looking like he desperately wished he'd been born into a quieter team. Poor guy. Okay, Shikamaru said, yawning. "Let's use a storage seal." "Duh. Who's going to manage it, then?" Kiba said. Everyone immediately turned and stared at Sakura. "What?" she said, bristling. "You're the responsible one," Naruto said cheerfully. "Yeah," Choji added. "You're, like, mom material." Sakura looked like she wasn't sure whether to be flattered or furious. I'm not your babysitter." Shikamaru shrugged. "Congratulations, you are now." "Yeah." Naruto chimed in. "We believe in you." "Democracy," Kiba added, grinning. "We voted. You lost." "Without me even voting," Sakura protested. "Still lost," Shikamaru said, deadpan. Sakura sighed the sigh of a girl who knew exactly how many brain cells she was surrounded by, hint. Not enough, and held out her hand. "Fine. Give it." Grumbling, Naruto, Kiba, Niji, and Choji all dumped their loot onto the blanket. Sakura grumbled under her breath but unrolled a scroll from her pouch and, with a few flicks of her chakra, sealed all the treasure inside with a puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, she tucked the scroll into her belt with the resigned air of someone who knew exactly how much she was going to regret this later. "If you lose that scroll," Niji said calmly, "I will not be held responsible for what happens." "Gee, thanks for the pressure," Sakura muttered. "Don't worry," Naruto said, patting her shoulder way too enthusiastically. "We totally believe in you. 120%. Sakura gave him a glare so sharp it could have peeled paint off the walls. "You're carrying your own share of the loot next time," she muttered. "I'm not your pack mule." "Technically, you are now," Shikamaru said with a lazy smirk. If looks could kill, Shikamaru would have been vaporized on the spot. Still, nobody argued. Sakura was scary when she got serious, and besides better her than us. With our shiny loot safely tucked away and a much lighter conscience, emphasis on much lighter, we slipped back into the alleys to regroup with the others. We had a ship to steal and a world to survive in. You know. Normal Tuesday. Meanwhile, a few streets away from Operation Let's Give Sakura All Our Problems, Ino and Kurenai were pulling off a different kind of heist, the informational kind. The marine base of Logtown was an ugly building, the kind of place that screamed bureaucracy and bad coffee. It didn't even have good security. Seriously, 2 Chunin-level Genjutsu users could have walked right in without anyone noticing. Which, surprise, is exactly what happened. "I'll handle it," Ino said confidently, adjusting her ponytail like she was preparing for a modeling shoot instead of potential international crime. "I'm great with men in uniform." Kurenai gave her a look. "We're here to gather information. Not flirt." "Why not both?" Ino winked. If you ever wondered what it was like to be stuck between a professional and a chaotic bestie, Kurenai lived that reality every day. They slid into the marine captain's office like ghosts. Poor guy, he never even looked up from his paperwork before Kurenai weaved a subtle genjutsu across the room. 1 minute, he was stamping forms, the next, he was blinking dazedly like he'd forgotten his own name. Ino stepped forward, placing 2 fingers against her temple, then lightly tapping the captain's forehead. "Memory dive, baby," she whispered, her voice practically singing. The captain slumped in his chair, and a rush of memories flooded Ino's mind, confusing, colorful, and loud. Ino had to force herself not to reel back. This world was wild. After a few seconds, she broke contact, swaying slightly, her eyes wide. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. "Well?" Ino rubbed her temples. "Oh, we are so not in the elemental nations anymore." She motioned to the captain, who was still sitting there drooling like he was waiting for someone to reboot his brain. Then she started explaining what she'd seen. "Okay, so first of all, there's this thing called the world government, huge organization, runs pretty much everything. They have armies, fleets, and something called the cipher pole that basically makes Anbu look like mall cops." "Charming," Kurenai muttered. "Then there's the Yonkum 4 pirate emperors who rule huge chunks of the ocean. Each one is basically strong enough to level a country if they feel like it." "4?" Kurenai asked, sharp. "Not one overlord, but 4. Yup. Big names. Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shanks." Ino ticked them off like they were entries on a grocery list. "Think of them like Madara, Hashirama, and Naruto if they all decided to become pirate kings." Kurenai gave her a flat look. "That's horrifying." "Oh, it gets better," Ino said brightly. "There's also the heavenly dragons, basically noble jerks who live in floating cities, think they're immortals, and can literally buy and sell people." Kurenai's fists clenched. "Disgusting." "Yup." Ino grinned grimly. "And then there's something called devil fruits." She paused for dramatic effect. "Magical fruits that give you insane powers. Like, one guy turned into smoke. Another can control gravity. But, you lose the ability to swim forever." Both of them glanced toward the window, where the ocean sparkled in the distance. Considering their entire team had survived multiple ocean battles by running on water, that was concerning. "Bottom line," Ino said, straightening up. "There are people here with powers that rival tailed beasts. Maybe even stronger. But if there are fruits that can change you so drastically, maybe there's something here that can open portals between worlds." Kurenai nodded thoughtfully. "Good. That means we have a way home. We just have to find it before something finds us first." Before they could leave, Ino leaned in toward the captain and, with the finesse of someone who'd definitely done this before, whispered a final suggestion into his ear through chakra. "You took a long nap. Everything was boring. No ninja girls broke into your office. You definitely didn't drool." With a sleepy grunt, the marine captain slumped over his desk again, this time genuinely asleep. Paperwork fluttered around him like very boring snow. "Mission complete," Ino said smugly. Kurenai sighed. "Come on. Let's find the others before they burn down the city." Knowing Naruto was involved, that was actually a pretty reasonable concern. Naruto was outraged, not just a little grumpy, not just mildly annoyed, full howling at the moon level offended. "This ship sucks," Naruto yelled, pointing dramatically at the sad little vessel bobbing in the harbor. "It's tiny. It's ugly. It looks like someone tried to build a boat out of leftovers from a junkyard." Hiba, standing next to him with Akamaru perched on his shoulder like an angry parrot, nodded furiously. "I wouldn't even take my grandmother fishing in that thing." "You don't even have a grandmother," Shikamaru pointed out lazily. "Exactly." Kiba barked. "That's how bad it is." The ship, bless its ugly little heart, was painfully average. No majestic figurehead, no cool flags, no fancy rigging. Just wood, ropes, and sadness. Lee, ever the optimist, tried to rally. A small ship builds character. It will strengthen our youthful souls. Naruto just gave him a look. Bro, I already have character. I need a bed. Before the mutiny could escalate, Ino, Kurenai, and the rest of the scouting team showed up. Ino took one glance at the ship, wrinkled her nose like someone had offered her a week-old tuna sandwich, and declared, yeah, no. I'm not spending even one night on that raft. Kurenai, normally the voice of reason, actually agreed. Which was shocking enough that half the group blinked in confusion. You're all forgetting, Kurenai said, crossing her arms. We're not here for a one-day camping trip. We don't know how long we'll be stuck in this world. We need a ship with real rooms, space for supplies, proper sleeping arrangements, not sleeping out on the deck like hobos. Hinata, who was too polite to say anything, still looked quietly relieved. Even Gara tilted his head in mild disapproval, which in Gara speak was the equivalent of screaming nope. Fenton, pragmatic as always, chimed in. Plus, we need storage space for weapons. And if we get attacked by pirates, and let's be honest, we're absolutely getting attacked by pirates, we'll need a ship sturdy enough to fight back. That finally clicked with the ship stealers. Yes, that was their unofficial team name now, thanks, Choji, and everyone grudgingly agreed. So Sakura said, tapping her foot, we need to steal a better ship. Naruto grinned like a fox that had just spotted the henhouse door swinging open. I saw a sweet-looking one on the other dock, he said. Big, fast, way cooler. It even had a dragon painted on the side. Wait, Shikamaru said, squinting. Wasn't that one surrounded by guards? Naruto's grin widened. Yup. There was a collective sigh. A few forehead slaps. Maybe a prayer or two. Why, Shikamaru muttered, is everything with you people so much more troublesome than it needs to be? But it was too late. The decision had been made. They were going after the cool ship. Because if they were stuck in a world of pirates, crazy powers, and giant sea monsters, at least they'd do it with some style. Chapter 3. Turns out, when you have like 20 extremely powerful ninja working together, stealing a ship is about as difficult as stealing candy from a sleeping baby. And in Naruto's personal handbook, that was the best kind of mission. Easy, smooth, and with zero life-threatening explosions, for now. Kurenai handled the big stuff. She stepped forward, her crimson eyes flashing, and casually threw down an illusion so massive the whole port might as well have been asleep. The guards blinked twice, muttered something about nice weather, and walked off the ship like polite zombies heading to a bakery. Meanwhile, the rest of us just strolled aboard like we owned the place. Honestly, it almost felt illegal how easy it was. Toji, Aka team's new favorite cook, did a supply run, his backpack stuffed with enough food to survive a zombie apocalypse and still have leftovers for dessert. Once everyone was on board and the coast was clear, we raised the sails and yeeted ourselves out of port before anyone could blink. Goodbye, Logtown, hello, whatever crazy pirate world we were in now. Our first stop was figuring out how badly we could mess up this world. Spoiler. Pretty badly. Naruto, that's me, your charming narrator, was already at monster levels of power, with Sage Mode, Fuinjutsu, and enough absurd jutsu to make even the biggest bad guys cry. Kakashi, my old sensei, still the chill, one-eyed legend himself, could annihilate half a city before breakfast. Sakura was basically Tsunade 2.0, imagine a sweet-faced girl who could punch through mountains. Now double it. I and Lee had their insane 8 gates thing. You know, opening your body's natural limiters and turning into a glowing wrecking ball of doom. Lee was practically bouncing in excitement. Guy was already planning youthful pirate adventures. Somebody, please stop them. Fenton, our weapons specialist, could literally flatten a town with her personal arsenal. I once saw her pull a spiked iron fortress out of a scroll like it was no big deal. Our sweet spooky Gara could drown a town in a tsunami of sand if he was feeling cranky. Tenkura wasn't there yet, but the dude had jacked a ton of crazy puppets from that Akatsuki guy. What was his name again? Saucer. Sushi, Sakura shouted from the deck. Sasori, you blonde idiot, right? Sasori. Now Kankuro had an army of puppets to command, which was horrifying when you thought about it. Shino was nightmare fuel for normal people. He could just unleash clouds of venomous insects by the hundreds of thousands. Seriously. If you didn't know him, you'd have nightmares forever. Tiba. Animal guy. Bark, bite, and a loyal dog sidekick who could body slam you through a wall. Practical if we needed to track something. Or someone. Toji, our food expert. No complaints. Good food equals good morale. I respected that. Hinata blushed when we assigned her the role of scout and sniper. Her Byakugan had insane range, and if she wanted to, she could probably strike you dead before you even knew she was there. Hinata being a low-key sharpshooter was honestly adorable and terrifying. Shikamaru was our brains, the guy who could probably take over this whole world if he wasn't so terminally lazy still. I knew he had a little chaos hiding in him somewhere. I mean, I wasn't blind, I was blonde. Now, with the wind at our backs, a stolen, but way cooler, ship under our feet, and enough firepower to conquer a country, and I was liking the sound of that somehow. Regardless, we were officially on our way. Target. The Marine HQ mission. Find a way home also mission. Don't accidentally start a war. No promises on that last one. Turns out, stealing a ship and sailing into the unknown wasn't the dumbest part of our plan. Nope, that award went to what came next. We all gathered around the map. Joji had definitely not wiped barbecue sauce on, he swore it was a battle stain, and took a good long look. Okay, Shikamaru said, tapping the map with that I'm too smart for this nonsense expression. Technically, we could just skip everything and head straight for the world government capital. He pointed at a tiny dot sitting smack on a massive mountain range called the Red Line. Hiba whistled low. That's far. Yeah, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. And I don't like it. Kinda screams certain death to me. Very youthful. Lee declared, already hopping from foot to foot like an overexcited golden retriever. Imagine the glory. I challenge the strongest foe to a duel for the honor of Konoha. No, half the team said at once. Well, Kurenai said no. Naruto just threw a chunk of bread at Lee's forehead. We're not dueling them, Lee, Naruto said, exasperated. This is not a shonen manga, this is real life. Well, realer life. Lee pouted in a way that almost made you feel bad. Almost. Sakura folded her arms and gave her patented "you're all moron" sigh. Look, pirates in this world have powers that can destroy islands. Plural. If that's what pirates can do, imagine what the guys running the government are packing. Hinata, quietly nodding beside her, muttered, not ideal to storm the capital. Exactly. Shikamaru said, looking absurdly relieved that at least one person had a brain. We're ninja. We need to act like ninja. Which basically meant sneaky stuff. Stealth. Espionage. Kidnapping if necessary. You know. The usual. So what's the new plan? Kankuro asked, casually spinning a throwing knife between his fingers. Naruto grinned. Easy. We travel the Grand Line, beat up some pirates, fight a few marines, experience the crazy magic powers this world has, and gather real info. And maybe steal a few cool things while we're at it, Kiba added, wagging his eyebrows. Maybe, Naruto agreed, flashing his fox grin. Definitely. Basically. Live our best pirate ninja lives for a bit without ending up imprisoned, experimented on, or exploded. That last part was important especially for guys like Kiba who had big accidentally causes explosions energy. Strategic goals. Don't pick fights with Yonko-level monsters unless we're bored and suicidal. Kidnap someone important later. Preferably when they're alone. And napping. Learn about this devil fruit magic stuff. Find an easier way home. Optional, steal as much treasure as humanly possible without becoming full-time pirates. Naruto clapped his hands, alright team. Time to make some memories. And not the kind where we get thrown into prison for eternity, Shikamaru muttered under his breath. We set course for the Grand Line, heading toward the biggest adventure we never asked for. And if the world wasn't ready for us yet. Well, tough luck because Konoha's finest were about to flip this whole world upside down. The ship was finally moving. Asuma had somehow claimed the wheel like he'd been born to sail, a cigarette dangling from his lips and a "trust me, I've seen pirates" kind of vibe. Kurenai stood beside him, map in hand, pointing directions and arguing about why no, he couldn't just feel it out like the ocean would guide him. Below deck, Choji was busy converting the kitchen into something out of a five-star restaurant. The smell of grilled meat already filled the air, making even Naruto's stomach rumble. Tenten, meanwhile, had claimed the ship's armory like a dragon hoarding treasure. She was checking, cleaning, loading, and somehow upgrading the ship's cannons. By the time she was done, even a Yonko ship would think twice before picking a fight. The ship itself, Naruto really had to admit, was gorgeous. A proper captain's ship with fancy rooms, multiple decks, and thick armor. It even had shiny railings and fancy lanterns, which was why Kakashi had made Naruto repaint the whole thing and stitch a new flag, one without the marine logo, obviously. Up on the highest deck, Shikamaru was snoozing with his cap pulled over his eyes like an old man on vacation. Occasionally his fingers twitched, like he was dreaming about punching Naruto for waking him up. Hinata and Neji were practicing archery on the main deck, their Byakugan activated. The Hyuga really were freaks of nature, hitting tiny wooden targets Naruto couldn't even see at crazy distances. Hiba and Shino were plotting something shady involving the local wildlife. Naruto wisely decided not to ask yet. And Ino was bossing everyone around with decorating tips. We are not living on an ugly ship, guys. This is our image. Our brand. Naruto watched it all from the railing, feeling a little restless. It was weirdly peaceful. No explosions. No bloodthirsty Akatsuki members around the corner. No world-ending threats breathing down his neck. Just friends. And an endless ocean. Still, peace was boring. Naruto needed something fun. His eyes drifted to Gaara, sitting cross-legged beside Kankuro, who was busy tinkering with a puppet the size of a small building. Gaara looked bored, like seriously bored. His hand swirled lazily around him, shifting shapes without any real effort. Naruto grinned. "Hey, Gaara," he said, sauntering over. "Wanna race?" Gaara blinked at him, slow and confused. "Race? Yeah. In the sky." Naruto said like it was the most normal thing ever. "Come on, it's not like we have Akatsuki breathing down our necks. Let's live a little." Gaara stared at him. He was the Kazekage. He had responsibilities. And Naruto was giving him the biggest, dumbest, most sincere grin ever. "Fine," Gaara sighed. "Victory." Naruto quickly formed white feathery wings on his back using a transformation jutsu, flexing them like a show-off. Gaara copied him, the wings a little too stiff, a little too floppy. When Gaara tried to take off, he flailed like a drunk pigeon, rising about a foot off the ground before crashing face first into the deck. Naruto coughed, trying not to laugh. "Maybe practice a little first." Gaara, who normally had the dignity of a mountain, nodded solemnly from the floor. His hand gently lifted him back up like a grumpy cloud. Thus began flight practice. Disaster Edition. Naruto coached from the side like some hyperactive sensei, while Gaara slowly learned how to stay airborne without crashing into things. Hinata and Neji paused their archery to watch. Kiba howled with laughter. Ino took pictures. Tenten threatened to shoot Gaara down if he crashed into her cannons again. But Gaara didn't quit. Naruto, he couldn't stop smiling. Naruto was doing loops in the sky now, a blur of white wings and golden hair against the endless blue. Gaara hovered after him, a bit more controlled but still a little stiff. He wasn't crashing into the water anymore, so Naruto counted that as a win. "Not bad, Gaara." Naruto shouted over the wind. "You're almost flying like a real bird. A really, really serious bird." Gaara gave him a flat look mid-air. But before either of them could think of another dumb race idea, Naruto's sharp eyes caught something in the distance. A ship, a pirate ship. Not just any ship, it was packed to the brim, with at least 100 rough-looking pirates waving swords, guns, and bottles of rum around. Naruto's grin turned downright devilish. Gaara's sand began to swirl around him excitedly. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Naruto asked, eyes gleaming. Gaara only nodded once, which in Gaara language was the same as yelling hell yeah. Naruto dive-bombed first, a white streak dropping out of the sky like a missile. The pirates barely had time to scream before he slammed into the deck with a loud boom, sending splinters flying and knocking half the crew on their butts. "Oi, oi," Naruto called out cheerfully. "Sorry to drop in uninvited. Mind if we borrow your ship for target practice?" The pirates pulled their weapons, looking more furious than frightened. Which made it even funnier when Gaara descended like a ghost, his sand forming a giant claw that grabbed half the ship and squeezed it like a stress ball. Meanwhile, from the ship they'd stolen earlier, Kiba had been watching with growing excitement. He punched the railing. "No fair. They're hogging all the fun." Akamaru barked in agreement. Without hesitation, Kiba dashed off the deck, running across the water with chakra-enhanced feet, leaving a splashing trail behind him. Back on the ship, Hinata watched him go, and after a second of hesitation, she tightened her gloves and pulled out her bow. She felt Niji's presence beside her, calm and encouraging. "You should go too," he said, smirking slightly. "Naruto likes girls who can jump into the chaos with him." Hinata turned bright red. But then, shyly determined, she drew an arrow, aimed with her Byakugan flaring, and fired a perfect shot that pinned a pirate sword hand to the mast without touching a hair on his head. Niji gave her a rare proud smile. "Good shot, Hinata." Blushing furiously but smiling back, Hinata launched herself into the air with a burst of chakra, landing gracefully on a floating chunk of Gaara's sand as she kept sniping enemies from above with deadly precision. Meanwhile, Kiba had already arrived, kicking pirates into the water left and right, laughing like a maniac. Gaara was forming a massive sand dome around half the pirates, trapping them in place. Naruto zipped from pirate to pirate, tapping their foreheads and knocking them out cold with gentle bursts of chakra. Hinata's arrows whistled through the air, taking out weapons, knees, and occasionally pinning two pirates together by their shirts. Kiba was fighting 3 pirates at once, while Akamaru played bowling ball, knocking enemies off their feet. It was a one-sided slaughter, honestly. At some point, Naruto perched on a mast and cupped his hands around his mouth, shouting. "Hey, anyone wanna surrender now and tell us where all the good stuff is? Promise we won't drop you into the ocean." "Maybe." One pirate, tied up in Gaara's sand, whimpered. I'll tell everything. Please don't kill me." Naruto beamed. "See. That's the spirit." Chapter 4. 2 days after that little sky battle and a few more pirate beatdowns along the way, the team found themselves sitting around the main deck for an emergency meeting. An important meeting. One that Naruto himself had called. He stood dramatically at the head of the gathered group, arms crossed, the ocean breeze flapping his cloak. "Alright, listen up," Naruto declared, slamming a piece of paper onto the table. "We've got a problem. A serious one." Everyone leaned in, curious. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. "Pirates?" Gaara shook his head calmly. "Marines." Sakura adjusted her gloves. "Sea monsters." Naruto shook his head gravely. "Worse. Way worse," he said, voice grim. "We've become famous." There was a pause. "That's bad?" Tenten asked, confused. Naruto pointed dramatically at the newspaper Choji had brought back from the last port. On the front page, in big bold letters. "Mysterious ninja pirates terrorize the waters." Underneath, a hastily drawn terrible sketch of Naruto and Gaara. Naruto was drawn like some wild-haired demon child and Gaara looked like a vampire. Akamaru was just a blob. The worst part. Their crew name the locals had decided to call them. The Crazy Bandits. Silence. Kiba stared. Bandits. Bandits. Ino paled. Crazy bandits, that's so lame. Toji looked genuinely heartbroken. They even spelled crazy with a K. Crazy bandits. Shino adjusted his sunglasses and said flatly, "It is suboptimal." Lee, who had been extremely excited about having a crew name, wiped a tear dramatically. "Yash, how could the flames of our youth be mocked so cruelly?" Naruto slammed his fist on the table. "Exactly. We can't let them name us something that sounds like a group of drunk circus rejects. We need a cool name. A name that strikes fear into our enemies. A name that makes people swoon and pirates pee their pants." Everyone nodded furiously. "Alright. Everyone who cares about not being called the Crazy Bandits," Naruto pointed. "I know, Kiba, Choji, Lee, Shino, you guys are in charge of brainstorming." Naruto whipped out a notebook and a pen dramatically. "Let's hear your ideas." Brainstorming session. "Kiba. How about the wolf pack?" Akamaru barked excitedly. Naruto wrote it down thoughtfully. "Not bad. Very Animal Kingdom. Ino. Something stylish and mysterious, maybe Phantom Blossom." Kiba snickered. "Sounds like a perfume." Ino elbowed him hard enough to make him wheeze. "Choji. Something with food. Like Storm Buffet." Everyone blinked at him. "What? We storm through enemies and take their food." Shino. In his usual calm voice, "Silent Eclipse." Everyone paused. Naruto whispered, "That actually sounds super cool." Lee. "The Eternal Youth Division." Everyone turned slowly to stare at Lee. Naruto patted his shoulder. Maybe we'll keep that as a backup." After a heated 15 minutes of arguing, laughing, and Kiba and Ino almost trying to strangle each other over name rights, they voted. The winning name? Silent Tempest. It was mysterious. Cool. Dangerous. And most importantly, not something that sounded like they lived under a bridge. They immediately got to work on their logo too. With Naruto leading the charge with some surprisingly good sketching, thanks to his seal drawing experience, they designed a beautiful emblem. A swirling spiral storm, a nod to Naruto's heritage. Wrapped in elegant wings, Gaara and Naruto's flying races. With kunai and shuriken embedded around it, classic ninja. Ino helped polish it up, adding some stylish flourishes. Tenten carved the logo into the ship's new flag. After the ruckus of choosing their crew name and designing the flag, Naruto stood up again, looking even more serious. "Alright. Next problem." He shouted, pointing at their beautiful, newly painted ship. Everyone turned to look at the sturdy vessel cutting through the ocean waves like a beast. "This baby needs a name." Naruto grinned. Ino nodded dramatically. "A ship's name is important. It reflects the soul of the crew." Toji crossed his arms. "And it's good luck too. We can't just sail on former marine vessel number 239. Shikamaru, from the mast, sighed loudly. "Troublesome but necessary." Lee struck a heroic pose. "It must be something full of youthful energy and hope." Gaara blinked slowly. "Something appropriate for stealth and sudden violence." "Gaara, please don't suggest murder sand boat or something," Naruto said, sweating. Brainstorming session. "Kiba. How about Fangbreaker?" Akamaru barked in support. Naruto wrote it down. "Very Kiba, noted." Ino. "Something elegant, like Moonlight Tempest." Sakura actually nodded. "Not bad." Tenten. "Storm Piercer." Naruto grinned. "Very action. Why?" Choji. "Food ship." Everyone collectively ignored him with love. Shino. "Silent Voyager." Niji nodded. "Fits our style." Lee. "Youthful Dragon." Kurenai smiled gently. "Maybe tone it down, Lee." Hinata. Very shyly, "Azure Gale." Naruto blinked. "Hey, that's actually really nice." After another lively debate and Hinata blushing from too much praise, they voted again. Top choices. Silent Voyager. Moonlight Tempest. Azure Gale. Storm Piercer. Final winner. By a narrow margin. Azure Gale. It was graceful yet strong, evoking the blue winds over the ocean, and it fit perfectly with the theme of Silent Tempest for the crew name. Naruto stood proudly as they painted the name across the side of the ship in bold flowing letters. Azure Gale, ship of the Silent Tempest. And with that, the real adventure began. Sailing the Grand Line was supposed to be dangerous. You know, sea monsters, pirates, sudden storms, the usual Tuesday chaos. Instead, for 2 days straight, it had been boring. Like watching grass grow, but the grass is made of water. Boring. That's when we saw it. The reverse mountain. Imagine the biggest, stupidest looking water slide you've ever seen, then stick it on a mountain, shoot ships up it at breakneck speed, and you'll have a pretty good idea. Water flowed upward, defying gravity like it had just gotten sick of physics and decided to vibe instead. Everyone piled onto the deck to gawk. Naruto was grinning ear to ear. Hinata was taking mental notes. Shikamaru was pretending not to care, but he kept sneaking glances like he wanted to figure out how to nap while sliding up a mountain. Even Gaara looked a tiny bit impressed. What the heck is even going on here? Kiba muttered, shading his eyes. Magic. Naruto shrugged. Cool magic. We'll figure it out later. Right then, Kiba noticed something even more interesting and way bigger. There was a whale. Correction. There was a whale. A giant black and white beast floated near the mountain's base, looking like it could snap a battleship in half just by sneezing on it. Its body was covered in scars, like someone had used it for sword practice. And someone, a real artist, let me tell you, had painted the world's ugliest pirate flag across its forehead. The poor whale looked like it had lost a bet. Kiba's mouth dropped open. No way. That's so cool. The rest of us were equally amazed, but you know, we played it cooler. Except Choji, who asked if whales tasted good. I'm pretty sure Sakura threw a ladle at him. Then Kiba frowned. But what's with the flag? And those scars? It looks hurt. He turned immediately to Sakura, who was already cracking her knuckles like she was gearing up for whale surgery. I can try, she said, eyeing the whale critically. Healing jutsu might not work the same, but it's worth a shot. Now, you might be thinking, isn't this the part where they all freak out because a literal sea immortal is floating 2 feet away? Nope. Not this team. You see, when you can level cities, kill dragons, and punch through mountains before breakfast, a giant whale doesn't even rank top 10 on your things to panic about list. Still, Kiba glanced at Naruto like he needed the final go-ahead. Technically, they had no official captain. But unofficially, unspoken, and unanimously Naruto was it future Hokage. Future Pirate King, maybe. Future whatever he felt like being. Naruto gave Kiba a big thumbs up. Go for it, buddy. Let's make a friend. I like this plan, Ino chimed in, flipping her hair. Besides, if the whale gets stubborn, I can mind link with it. Or Kiba can bribe it with fish. Kiba bounced on his toes, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. Then without another word, he sprinted to the edge of the ship and launched himself straight at the whale. Someone probably Niji sighed dramatically. Idiots. Naruto cupped his hands around his mouth. Tell him we're awesome and that ugly flag sucks. And with that, Kiba flew through the air, arms wide open, about to tackle history's biggest, saddest whale and recruit the most ridiculous pet this side of the Grand Line. It was shaping up to be a very Naruto day. Kiba landed on Laboon with a loud whump. Laboon, being the size of a small continent, barely noticed. He kind of wobbled in the water, gave a low curious groan like, hey, what's up, tiny land mammal? Before Kiba could say hi, an old man from a lighthouse near the mountain exploded onto the scene, yelling like someone had just stepped on his prize gardenias. Dead away from the whale, the guy was waving an ancient rifle that looked like it had seen more birthdays than he had. Probably fired slower, too. Kiba froze mid-wave. The rest of us on the ship froze too. You know, responsible ninja things. Nobody wanted to be that guy who got into a gunfight with a grandpa over a whale. There was a silent collective agreement. Push Asuma forward. Asuma got the look from all sides. The universal "you're the adult, fix this" look. He sighed so heavily I'm surprised the ship didn't tip over. I should have retired when I had the chance, he muttered, stepping off the deck. The lighthouse guy stormed toward us like he was ready to beat everyone to death with a walker. I'm Crocus, he barked. And that's Laboon. He's not a pet. He's a highly intelligent creature. Get off of him. Asuma raised his hands in peace, doing the very best please don't shoot the children face he could muster. We know that, Asuma said, trying for his most patient teacher voice. We have 2 kids who can talk to animals. They're very weird. But effective. Crocus blinked, the anger draining a little from his face. Talk to him. From where he stood on Laboon's back, Kiba waved. Yo. We're cool. Crocus looked like he was trying to decide if we were insane, lying, or just very bad at planning criminal acts. What do you want from him? Crocus asked warily. Asuma shrugged. Nothing. We just thought he looked pitiful. That's when Sakura leaped into action literally. She flipped off the ship, landed lightly beside Kiba, and pressed her hands to Laboon's side. Glowing green chakra flooded out, spreading across the whale's skin like sunlight through water. It took maybe 10 seconds. Tn seconds for scars that had marred Laboon for years to vanish like they'd never existed. The pirate flag. Gone too. He looked shiny and new, like a super deluxe model straight from the whale store. Crocus's jaw fell open so wide, I could have parked a ship in it. Meanwhile, Kiba was deep in conversation with the now very healthy Laboon. You'd expect a whale that big to sound wise and slow, maybe even majestic. Nope. Laboon sounded like a hyper teenage boy on a sugar rush. Emotional. Loud. Very eager to make friends. Turns out Laboon wasn't just floating around for the fun of it. He was waiting for his old crew, the Rumber Pirates, to come back and get him. Some guy named Luffy had promised to make that happen. And Laboon, bless his giant blubbery heart, believed him with all the stubbornness of a teenager waiting for a text that would definitely come. Any day now. So why not go find them? Kiba asked. Laboon groaned sadly, the sound rattling our ship's rigging. I can't climb the reverse mountain. Kiba snorted. Is that all? Dude, you have no idea what my friends can do. He pointed toward the ship, where Naruto was already making a giant bird out of chakra to show off. Choji, in his super size form, was flexing like a sumo wrestler preparing to lift a house. Gaara was calmly floating a mountain-sized bowl of sand above his palm like it was a beach ball. Sakura, grinning wickedly, was cracking her knuckles like she was really hoping for the just throw him option. You want to fly? You want to be thrown? You want to be carried in a giant sand bubble? Kiba said, arms wide open. Buddy, we can make it happen. Laboon blinked his massive whale eyes. A slow, hopeful smile spread across his face. Crocus facepalmed so hard you could hear the smack from across the water. This, he muttered, is either going to be amazing or the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Honestly. Knowing us, it was probably going to be both. Before we could help Laboon climb a mountain, we all agreed we should probably eat first. Priorities. Even ninja pirates need snacks. Crocus invited us into his lighthouse, which looked small on the outside but turned out to be basically a man cave inside. Maps, charts, medicine, a suspicious number of tea sets, and, oh yeah, a giant whale tank built into the floor. Laboon swam lazy circles underneath us like the world's biggest goldfish. Crocus whipped up a feast that made even Choji whistle in admiration. Roasted fish, fried fish, sushi, grilled fish skewers, and something he called whaleweed salad. Hinata politely tried it. Kiba nearly died. As we stuffed ourselves like we hadn't eaten in weeks, okay, it had been 5 hours, but still, we got to talking. Turns out, Crocus wasn't just some random lighthouse keeper. He was Crocus of the Oro Jackson. He'd sailed with the Pirate King, Gold D. Roger, for 3 whole years. Few collective jaw drop. Naruto, practically vibrating in his seat, nearly flipped the table. Which wait, would you mean the actual Pirate King? The real deal? Crocus chuckled. The very same. Naruto's eyes lit up like bonfires. Tell me everything. Asuma sighed into his tea. Here we go. Crocus leaned back, a twinkle in his eye. He started telling stories about epic sea battles, islands that floated in the sky, duels that shook entire oceans. Roger had been fearless, wild, charismatic, the kind of leader who could convince a crew to sail straight into a hurricane with a smile and a promise of treasure on the other side. Naruto hung on to every word like a kid at story time. But then, because he was Naruto, he decided listening wasn't enough. He bit his thumb, summoned a shadow clone, and bam. The clone shifted, twisting its features until it looked like the legendary Gold D. Roger himself. Right down to the flashy mustache, wide grin, and cocky tilt of his head. Even Crocus did a double take. He set his tea down very carefully, as if wondering whether Naruto had slipped something into it. Crocus started, rubbing his eyes. Yup. Naruto said, grinning. Is this how he stood? Fought? Talked? See, ever since his training with Jiraiya, Naruto had gotten weirdly good at copying people. Not just how they looked, but how they moved, how they fought. It made battling Naruto and his army of clones basically a nightmare, because you never knew if you were about to fight a reckless brawler, a cold tactician, or, apparently now, the Pirate King himself. The Roger clone drew an imaginary sword, giving a whooping laugh that sounded dangerously close to what Crocus remembered. Crocus stared at him for a long time. You know, he said finally, voice soft, you've captured him better than you think. He stood up and walked over, correcting the way the clone held its sword, nudging the stance to something a little looser, a little wilder. Roger didn't fight like a swordsman, Crocus explained. He fought like a storm. Wild. Unpredictable. Every movement like it was part of some bigger current only he could see. Naruto adjusted, his clone flowing into the new stance, and suddenly it wasn't just a kid doing a mimicry. For a moment, it was like Roger was there, grinning, daring the world to catch him. Even the air in the room seemed to shift, electric and heavy with memory. Crocus's face softened into something that looked a little like sadness, a little like "oh, I haven't seen that spirit in a long time," he whispered. The rest of us sat there in stunned silence, too full, and maybe a little too emotional, to say anything. Naruto, smiling a little sheepishly, dispelled the clone with a puff of smoke. "Thanks, old man. I just wanted to see him, the way you remembered." Crocus wiped at his eye roughly. "You've got a good heart, kid, maybe even a little bit of Roger's madness too." Naruto laughed and scratched the back of his head. "Heh. I'll take that as a compliment." The dinner ended with Crocus promising to tell more stories later and us promising to somehow get Laboon over the mountain without blowing up the world. Small goals. After dinner, we finally got around to the small task of helping a whale climb a mountain. Simple stuff, really. Happens every Tuesday. Except Laboon didn't just want to climb it. Nope. Our giant new friend wanted to fly. "You want what now?" Kiba said, leaning closer to the tank like he hadn't heard right. Laboon bobbed his giant head up and down enthusiastically, sending tidal waves sloshing over the edges. If whales could sparkle with excitement, this one was practically a disco ball. "He says," Kiba translated, scratching his head, "he wants wings." Everyone turned to Naruto, who just grinned. You heard the whale. Kiba groaned. "You're all insane." "Awesome, but insane." Now, normally this would be where Naruto pulled a solution out of thin air, except this time, he folded his arms and shook his head. "I could do it," he said, "but Laboon's your partner now, Kiba. It should come from you." Kiba looked like he was going to argue, but then Ino clapped him on the back so hard he nearly face planted into the floor. "Don't worry," Ino said brightly. "We'll cheat." She sat down, pressed her fingers to Kiba's forehead, and linked his mind to Naruto's. Boom. Instant download of all Naruto's flight experiences, being thrown by birds, fighting mid-air, pulling off crazy stunts that would give even Hawks anxiety. Kiba staggered back, wide-eyed. Wha how Naruto, what the heck have you been through? Naruto just gave a thumbs up. It builds character. Armed with way too much terrifying knowledge, Kiba cracked his knuckles and faced Laboon. "Alright, big guy. You ready to become a majestic sky beast?" Laboon slapped the water hard enough to send a miniature tsunami across the lighthouse floor. "Cool. Let's do this." Kiba formed the seals, focusing not just on the look of wings, but how they felt. The way the wind caught you, the way you had to adjust mid-air, the crazy instinct of tilting just right to avoid smashing into things. The puff of smoke and Laboon's sleek black and white body shimmered. When the smoke cleared, Laboon looked down at his sides and screeched in delight because there, sprouting out of his thick sides, were two absolutely massive feathered wings, shining white and strong enough to create mini hurricanes with a flap. Choji said around a mouthful of fish, I didn't expect it, but flying whales kinda suit him. Looks good, Niji admitted, arms crossed. Even Asuma blinked like he was questioning his life choices. I've officially seen everything. Kiba, meanwhile, was getting instructions barked into his brain from Naruto's experiences. Okay, flap slow at first, Kiba told Laboon, who was fidgeting excitedly. Don't, nuke the lighthouse, okay? Laboon gave a whale-sized squeak, adorable and mildly deafening, and flapped gently. The entire lighthouse shook, dishes clattered off shelves, and we all had to grab something or be flung into the ocean. Gently, he said. Ino yelled as she dangled from a chandelier. Sakura laughed as she picked herself up. Laboon's gonna be just fine. After a few more shaky flaps, Laboon rose into the air, water streaming off his body like silver rain. For the first time in who knew how long, the giant whale soared above the reverse mountain, wings glittering in the sunlight. Kiba whooped, arms thrown up in the air. That's my whale. Naruto grinned so wide his face might have split. We're definitely keeping him. Crocus just shook his head, chuckling like he was way too old for this nonsense. Old Roger would have loved you kids, he muttered. As Laboon did a slow, clumsy barrel roll in the sky, Choji summed it up for all of us. This is officially the best day ever. Chapter 5. We were this close to making a grand, epic whale-assisted launch over Reverse Mountain when, of course, reality had to trip us up. Hold it. Crocus shouted, waving his arms like he was trying to hail a taxi or possibly stop a bunch of lunatics from blasting into an ocean death trap. We all screeched to a halt. Even Laboon, mid-flap, looked confused and flopped back into the water with a gigantic splash. Crocus gave us the patented grumpy old man, disappointed in your life choices stare, hands on hips. You kids got a log pose, right? He asked. Everyone blinked. Naruto scratched his head. A log what now? Kiba shrugged. Sounds like a bathroom problem. Doji muttered, maybe it's food related. Hinata looked worried. Lee struck a heroic pose like it would help. Niji just facepped him silently. Then, as one, everyone turned and stared at Ino. She crossed her arms. What? You read everything, Naruto pointed out. You always skim the important parts. Ino huffed. I did skim something about log poses in a brochure back in town. But it didn't sound important. Something about magnets and islands and whatever. I thought it was just tourist stuff. Crocus buried his face in his hands. He muttered something about youth these days, and Roger would have thrown them off the ship. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with the bone-deep weariness of a man who realized he was babysitting a small army of sugar-high dragons. Listen carefully, he said, very slowly. The Grand Line's magnetic fields are completely unstable. Your normal compass is about as useful as a wet noodle over there. Naruto perked up. Wait, can you eat a wet noodle compass? Crocus ignored him like a pro. You need a special compass, a log pose. It locks onto an island's magnetic signature. That's the only way you'll know where you're going. Otherwise, he waved vaguely at the endless, stormy horizon. You'll be lost forever. There was a beat of silence as everyone absorbed that. Then Kiba said, so basically, we've been charging into one of the world's most dangerous seas without any plan or navigation. Yup, Crocus said cheerfully. And we survived anyway, Naruto said, grinning. That, Crocus said, is the part that terrifies me. He shot a judgmental look at Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy, the so-called responsible adults who just kind of coughed and looked anywhere but at him. Crocus rubbed his temples. You kids. You're strong. No doubt about it. But strength without a brain is just a big mess waiting to happen. Hey. Naruto protested. I've got brains. Sure, Crocus said, patting his shoulder. And I'm the Tooth Fairy. Ino sighed. So what now? Crocus shrugged. You could always sail blind and hope for the best, or you could buy multiple log poses tuned to different islands. That way, you can pick your destination or explore randomly if you're feeling reckless. Naruto's eyes lit up. Random adventure. Ino groaned. Controlled exploration, Naruto. Controlled. I've got a log pose you can use, Crocus said, fishing out something that looked suspiciously like a chunky bracelet crossed with a snow globe. We all leaned in like moths to a flame. This one's tuned to the nearest island, Crocus continued. The island's called Whiskey Peak. It's the gathering spot for lots of pirates. Bounty hunters, smugglers, mercenaries, all kinds of scum. Pibble looked excited. Sounds like my kind of people. Ino smacked the back of his head. Crocus chuckled. You can buy another log pose there, maybe even a few if you've got the money or the guts to win one. Naruto's eyes sparkled with excitement. Pirate shopping mall. Let's go. Hinata looked worried. Will it be safe? Crocus gave her a look that clearly said, child, you are traveling with the equivalent of 5 natural disasters. You'll be fine, he said. More like they should be worried about you. We all preened a little at that. But, Crocus said, holding up a finger, you've got 2 choices. 1, you head to Whiskey Peak, get a log pose, pick your next island properly and maybe punch some pirates while you're at it. Naruto was already nodding like his head was on a spring. Or, Crocus said, you could gamble. You could try sailing blind and hope you wash up on another island without getting swallowed by sea kings or stuck in a storm that'll flatten your ship like a pancake. We all collectively grimaced. Blind sailing was fine when we didn't know better. Now that we knew the ocean was basically a living nightmare out there, it felt less exciting. Asuma took a drag from his cigarette and muttered, even I think this is a bad idea. And my threshold for bad ideas is pretty high. So Naruto said, clapping his hands together, Whiskey Peak. Whiskey Peak. Kiba whooped. Shopping trip, Ino grumbled, but even she looked a little excited. Crocus tossed the log pose to Naruto, who caught it clumsily with both hands. The needle's already pointing, Crocus said. Just follow it. But remember, Whiskey Peak is friendly to pirates until they aren't. Naruto gave him a huge thumbs up. Got it. We'll be fine. We're awesome. Crocus smiled wryly. Sure. Just try not to sink the place. Minutes later, we were back on our newly upgraded ship Laboon, now flapping his enormous wings and towing us like the world's biggest seagull. Naruto tied the log pose to his wrist like a fancy new bracelet. Adventure, he declared. Here we come. Reverse Mountain loomed before us, bigger than any mountain had any right to be. The river we were sailing on charged straight toward it, a furious current that looked ready to smash us into salty mist. Waves towered on either side of us like skyscrapers having a bad hair day. Normal people, they would have panicked, screamed, turned back. Not us. Because Naruto Uzumaki, in all his infinite ridiculous wisdom, had a plan. The regular ship ride is boring. He shouted, arms thrown wide like he was announcing a new amusement park ride. We're going in style. What style? Ino yelled as the ship bucked and creaked under the rising pressure. The Flying Whale Brigade. Naruto cried, grinning so wide it looked like it hurt. Before anyone could stop him, Naruto clapped his hands together and Kiba, Choji, and Shino were immediately caught in a flurry of hand signs. In a flash of transformation jutsu, the three of them poofed into flying whales. Giant, goofy, smiling flying whales. Kiba had shark teeth and looked a little too excited. Shino somehow wore sunglasses. And Choji, bless Choji, he was massive, like a floating blimp with flippers. Choji, carry the ship. Naruto shouted with glee. Choji whale snatched the ship carefully in his massive fins, while the rest of us scrambled to chakra stick ourselves to the deck before we became ocean pizza. Glue yourselves down, people. Kakashi ordered from the side, casually reinforcing the hull with his chakra like he was duct taping a water balloon. The ship shuddered but held together as Choji lifted it high into the stormy air. Higher. Meanwhile, not to be outdone, Naruto cracked his knuckles and grinned a grin that meant something absurd was about to happen. "Oh, no," Asuma muttered, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. Naruto poofed into a transformation that was so over the top it could have been illegal. He became a whale. No, a king of whales. Bigger than Choji, Kiba, Shino, and Laboon combined. He had a massive golden crown, a spiraling, ridiculous unicorn horn. A cape flapping dramatically in the wind. "I am the king of whales," he bellowed, his voice echoing across the ocean like a divine proclamation. "Why the horn?" Neji shouted against the roaring wind. "Why not?" Naruto roared back, laughter booming across the waves. And with that, our entire squad of flying whales, led by Naruto the Unstoppable, charged headfirst up Reverse Mountain. The river's current slammed against us like an angry titan, but Choji held strong, flapping his fins like the good boy he was. Kiba and Shino swirled around us like fighter escorts. Laboon whistled and did a barrel roll for style points. We blasted upward, faster and faster, water spraying into mist around us, the ship rattling like it was on a rocket ride. At the peak, we broke through the clouds. The sun hit the crown atop Naruto's head, setting it ablaze like a beacon. It was stupid. It was glorious. It was us. For one shining moment, we weren't just ninja. We were legends. The Royal Flying Whale Armada. And then gravity remembered we existed. "Down!" Naruto shouted. Choji flipped the ship with a surprising amount of grace, diving us down the other side of the mountain, like we were riding the world's craziest water slide. Everyone screamed and laughed at the same time. Even Kakashi, cool and composed Kakashi, was yelling something about needing hazard pay. We rocketed toward the Grand Line like a meteor made of pure chaotic ninja energy. Somewhere, probably, the gods of the sea stared at us and decided to just stay out of it. Because who wants to mess with a bunch of flying whales and a crowned maniac? With a log pose from Crocus giving them direction, the crew set their sights toward Whiskey Peak. Of course, flying toward it was Naruto's brilliant suggestion, and no one exactly had time to say no before it all spiraled into chaos. Tenkuro, never one to let someone else hog the spotlight, stomped onto the deck and slapped a big red button on the mast activating mechanical wings. He shouted like a mad scientist unveiling his greatest creation. Boom! Two gigantic creaky mechanical wings unfolded from the sides of the ship, complete with sputtering steam vents and crooked metal feathers. The ship lurched midair like a drunk seagull. Whales cackled. Yes, whales can cackle. Apparently Naruto was already posing on the figurehead like he was captain of the world. "Forward, my flying ship," he declared. That's when the last thread of patience snapped. Sakura, sweet wonderful Sakura, finally had enough. She stomped onto the deck with the fury of 1,000 tired babysitters. Her chakra flared so violently that the ship stopped tilting out of pure fear. "Ino, Shikamaru," she barked. Ino threw her hands up. "Finally. I'm tired of getting dragged into this madness." Even Shikamaru, lazily floating along until now, looked like he aged 10 years in 5 minutes. So troublesome, about time we stopped. In perfect synchronization, Neji leaped off the ship's railing, flipped midair, and landed right onto Kiba Whale's back. "Hey, what are you?" Kiba started, but Neji calmly tapped his Tenketsu points, blocking his chakra. Poof! Kiba was human again and falling face first toward the deck. Meanwhile, Kurenai, ever the cool-headed adult, walked to the edge and called, "Shino, that's enough. Return." Shino, who had been twirling in the air like a giant whale ballerina, immediately turned around and floated back, shrinking back into human form as he landed with a tired sigh. Gaara, still seated like a king, simply turned his head to his brother. "Tenkuro. Stop," he said. One word: immediate silence. Tenkuro groaned, but obediently shut down the mechanical wings with a wheezing, sputtering noise. The ship sagged downward, now just riding the natural flow of the Grand Line currents. Naruto, standing on the railing with his cape still dramatically fluttering, looked at all of them. And he laughed. Okay, my fault, he said, jumping back onto the ship and cancelling his transformation, becoming his normal chaotic human self again. He rubbed the back of his head, grinning sheepishly. You know, we've been so busy lately, and now that there was a little break I guess I went a little crazy. A little. Sakura snapped, cracking her knuckles. Before she could introduce Naruto's face to the deck with extreme prejudice, Kakashi stepped in, hands tucked lazily in his pockets. "You're right about one thing, Naruto," Kakashi said, his visible eye smiling lazily. "We've been busy. And we are still in unknown territory." He looked out over the sparkling but dangerous sea. "We don't know how strong the people here are. We shouldn't draw too much attention until we understand the rules of the Grand Line." Naruto scratched his cheek awkwardly. "Yeah, okay, fair. And if you really want more fun," Kakashi tilted his head, almost innocently, "there's a whole ocean out there. You can swim until you're tired." Naruto perked up like a dog hearing the word walk. "Really?" Kakashi shrugged. "Sure. Just don't get eaten." Naruto considered it very seriously. Laboon even looked tempted. Sakura facepalmed. "We're going to need a bigger crew of medics at this rate." Still, even though the insanity had been reeled in, for now, laughter echoed across the ship as they continued toward Whiskey Peak, the first real step into the mysteries, dangers, and adventures of the Grand Line. They were ready well mostly. Unknown to the young and chaotic crew sailing toward Whiskey Peak, the island was no longer the friendly den of bounty hunters it used to be. With Crocodile locked away after his defeat at the hands of a mysterious enemy, his sprawling underground network had crumbled like a sandcastle against the tides. And where there was a power vacuum, there was always someone ready to fill it. That someone was Don Quixote Doflamingo. The flamboyant warlord, amused by the chaos of Crocodile's downfall, had sent his people scattering like seeds across the Grand Line. He didn't even need to fully conquer it. Just planting his seeds of influence was enough. The weak bowed. The desperate obeyed. The strong were recruited. Whiskey Peak was one of the many islands now unofficially under Doflamingo's guidance. It wasn't worth a top officer's time, though instead, a discarded underling had been thrown onto the island like an afterthought, a man who once dreamed big but had been cut down to size. Bellamy the hyena. Once full of pride, now brimming with bitterness, Bellamy had been downgraded by Doflamingo after failing spectacularly in the New World. His orders were simple. Watch the Grand Line in trance. Gather rookies. Find potential among the new blood. And don't mess it up. Bellamy hated every second of it. He sat slouched at a bar in Whiskey Peak, gulping down mug after mug of cheap beer, his laugh that annoying hyena-like cackle echoing in the half-empty tavern. Hee. Kids these days. Thinking they can conquer the Grand Line. Let's see how long they last before I break their spirit. His men lounged nearby, grinning viciously. Tourists and merchants who once found Whiskey Peak a lively stopover now stayed clear unless they had no choice. Bellamy cracked his knuckles. There were rumors of a weird ship approaching, one that flew for a bit, apparently, and carried strange kids with even stranger powers ripe for the picking. New blood, huh? Bellamy muttered, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. He slammed the mug down and stood, swaggering toward the town square where he could see the docks. If they're strong, I'll recruit 'em. If they're weak, I'll crush 'em. The salty wind howled through the dusty streets as the island of false welcomes prepared for its newest batch of visitors. Meanwhile, on the ship, Naruto, completely oblivious to the trouble brewing, was hanging off the figurehead, staring eagerly ahead. "There it is," he shouted. "Whiskey Peak. Looks friendly." Sakura sighed deeply. Shikamaru muttered, "Troublesome. Nothing that looks that nice ever is." Kakashi, calmly reading his book, didn't even look up as he said, "Remember, team appearances can be deceiving." But of course, no one could have imagined just how much trouble was waiting for them. Chapter 6. Just as expected, the people of Whiskey Peak came rushing out the moment Naruto's crew docked. A huge welcome party, colorful banners, food, drinks, and loud cheering. It looked like a festival thrown in their honor. Naruto waved both hands in the air excitedly, eating up the attention. "See? I told you it looked friendly." The others weren't so easily fooled. Sakura folded her arms and narrowed her eyes. Ino scanned the crowd with a practiced, subtle glance, picking up on the way too many smiles didn't reach their eyes. Niji activated his Byakugan for a moment, enough to see hidden weapons beneath cloaks and barrels. Hinata, her own eyes keen, gently leaned toward Sakura and whispered, "There are men with blades hidden beneath the tables and barrels. They're waiting for something." Sakura snorted quietly. "Typical." Benkuro sniffed the air lightly. With years of poison work under his belt, it didn't take a genius to realize the wine and ale being offered was lightly laced enough to knock out a normal pirate or traveler who indulged too much. It would have worked on someone else. But they were ninja. Trained to survive assassination attempts, used to chakra-based purification methods, and resistant to low-level poisons by sheer necessity. Kurenai, one of the adults, gave a barely visible nod to Kakashi, who lazily turned a page in his book and said loud enough for their team to hear, "Remember what I taught you about hospitality in foreign lands, everyone. Eat lightly. Stay alert." Fibble laughed quietly. Eat lightly. You telling that to Choji? Choji gave him a death glare but stuffed a rice bowl in his mouth anyway. The friendly locals tried to usher them toward a large inn, the centerpiece of the town, claiming a feast was waiting. Naruto, of course, was already halfway to the door, but Shikamaru lazily grabbed him by the collar. Hold your horses, Naruto. Let's not make it too easy for them. Bellamy, watching from the shadows atop a building, clicked his tongue. Hee. Annoying little brats. Still, he was curious. These weren't the average greenhorn pirates. They moved too precisely, like they expected an attack. He grinned wider. Good. That meant he had an excuse to cut loose a little. Inside the inn, food was piled high. Music played, locals toasted to their brave new friends, pouring drink after drink. Naruto, Sakura, and even Kiba put on a good show, laughing and pretending to relax while subtly checking every movement. When Naruto took a sip of the special wine, he made a big, exaggerated hiccup, swaying like he was drunk. In reality, he just wanted to see who would move first once they thought he was down. He winked at Sakura, who smirked and rolled her eyes. Idiot. Meanwhile, Ino and Hinata moved through the room, gently pressing their chakra into the floor, the tables, the food, searching for hidden threats. Pankuro quietly toyed with a tiny puppet hidden in his sleeve, already preparing a surprise if needed. And Choji? Well, Choji was actually eating, but he kept glancing at Shikamaru for the signal to smash. Bellamy, still lurking outside, finally decided to step in when he saw no one collapsing. Guess I'll have to do it myself. He cracked his knuckles and dropped down from the roof like a predator ready to feast. The air was thick with anticipation as Bellamy stood in front of the group, his arms crossed and a sneer on his face. His spring-loaded body bounced in place, like a tight spring ready to snap. But something felt off. The ninja exchanged knowing glances, assessing their opponent with a mix of annoyance and indifference. Naruto, the future Hokage, cracked his knuckles and strolled up to Bellamy like they were old friends. A playful grin spread across his face as he clapped the pirate on the back. You know, Bellamy, he said with a smile, the problem isn't that you're too strong. It's that you're way too weak for us. Bellamy's eyes narrowed. What did you just say? Oh, don't worry about it, Naruto continued, unfazed by Bellamy's anger. You're just not strong enough to fight us. But hey, maybe you'll get strong enough to fight our kids one day. Wouldn't that be something? But for now, Naruto paused for dramatic effect, looking around the crew. Maybe you should fight our whale. The entire crew erupted into laughter. Sakura snorted, holding back a giggle. Shikamaru rolled his eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. Ino raised an eyebrow, amused by the exchange. Bellamy's face twisted with rage. How dare this brat speak to him like that? He wasn't just some weakling. He had power. He had pride. And he wasn't going to let some damn ninja look down on him. But before he could argue, Kiba stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Alright, Bellamy. You want to go against us? Then get ready for the real fight. Laboon, come here. He called, and the giant whale, now equipped with majestic wings, rumbled in response. Laboon's massive body shifted, his wings stretching wide as the wind kicked up around him. The air was electric with tension. Bellamy, feeling the weight of the moment, clenched his fists. He was going to prove himself today. Kiba gave a quick nod to Laboon. Alright, partner, let's show him what we're made of. And just like that, the showdown began. Bellamy's spring fruit powers kicked in. With a boing sound, his legs snapped backward like rubber, sending him rocketing into the air with blinding speed. He landed on a nearby roof, bounced off it, and shot straight at Laboon, fists flying. You're about to get a lesson in power, whale. Bellamy yelled as he rocketed forward, his body stretching and bouncing with insane speed. The ground beneath him cracked from the force of his jump. But Kiba wasn't worried. He'd been guiding Laboon for a while now. The whale was no longer the slow, lumbering giant it once was. Under Kiba's guidance, Laboon had learned to control the power of his massive body and newfound wings. With Ino's help, Kiba had strengthened Laboon's coordination and chakra flow, allowing the whale to move with precision and grace. With a giant flap of his wings, Laboon took off, soaring into the sky with unbelievable speed. Bellamy's jaw dropped as the whale darted through the air like a skilled fighter. Laboon spun in midair, creating a tornado with the powerful wind from his wings. The whirling gusts blasted Bellamy off course, sending him flying across the battlefield. Not bad for a whale, huh? Kiba called out, a grin spread across his face. As Bellamy struggled to regain his balance, Laboon dove toward him, water bullets shooting from his mouth like guided missiles. Bellamy barely managed to dodge the first few, bouncing on his spring-powered legs, but the last one caught him square in the chest. The force of the impact knocked him back, sending him crashing into a nearby building. Bellamy growled in frustration, pulling himself up with his springy limbs. You think that's enough to stop me? He yelled, his pride wounded. His fists clenched as he shot forward again, his legs stretching out to rocket him straight at the whale. But this time, Laboon had another trick up his sleeve. With Kiba's guidance, the whale soared higher and higher, flapping his wings furiously. As Bellamy closed in, Laboon came down from above, slamming into the ground with enough force to create shockwaves that sent cracks through the earth. The impact sent Bellamy flying backward, tumbling end over end, until he landed in a heap on the ground. "Not bad, huh?" Kiba shouted again. "He's got more tricks than you think." The crew watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded. Neji folded his arms and observed with calm detachment. "This is interesting, I never thought I'd see a whale fight a human like this." Sakura chuckled, rubbing her temples. "I didn't expect a whale to be such a pain in the ass. But Kiba's training really paid off." Doji munched on a snack, his eyes glued to the action. "Laboon's got moves. I think he's even better than some of those other strong pirates." Meanwhile, Kankuro raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know a whale could do that with its wings. Maybe I should try something similar with my puppets." Even Shikamaru, who had been trying to avoid getting involved, let out a quiet laugh. "Well, this isn't what I expected today." Bellamy was battered, bruised, and now utterly humiliated. He had thrown everything he had at Laboon, but nothing had worked. The whale was too fast, too strong, and now, too skilled. With one final desperate leap, Bellamy charged toward Laboon, his legs stretching at insane speeds. But just as he was about to strike, Laboon swerved, slamming into him from the side with an earth-shattering force. The collision sent Bellamy flying through the air, crashing into a tree with a sickening crunch. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Bellamy groaned, struggling to get up, but his body was too battered to move. All right, Bellamy muttered under his breath, wiping blood from his lip. "You win. I'm done here." Naruto grinned from the sidelines. "See, that wasn't so hard, was it?" Bellamy's pride was bruised, but he nodded reluctantly. He wasn't foolish enough to keep going against something that was clearly stronger than him. Kiba turned to the crew, his grin wide. "I told you Laboon was a fighter. You guys didn't believe me." Sakura rolled her eyes. "We get it, Kiba. You and your whale are a team. Now, let's just hope Bellamy here learned his lesson and doesn't do something stupid." When the dust finally settled, Bellamy was a Bellamy-shaped crater in the ground, groaning under Laboon's massive, yet somehow very proud, body. Kakashi, ever the cool-headed sensei, adjusted his forehead protector with 2 fingers and strolled up to Naruto, who was currently dusting whale hairs off his jacket like this was just another Tuesday. "So," Kakashi said lazily, "what's the plan, oh future Hokage of world peace and other impossible missions?" Naruto grinned, and man, it was the kind of grin that usually meant trouble for everyone except Naruto. "I'm gonna make sure they don't do anything naughty again," he said cheerfully, like he was offering free cupcakes. And just like that, he started patting pirates on the head like they were good little puppies. Except zap. With every pat, a glowing red seal appeared on their skin. Some of the tougher guys yelped like someone had stepped on their tails. "What's that?" Kiba asked, pointing like Naruto had just invented portable sunburns. "Blood prison seal," Naruto said casually. "Modified version. If they even think about doing something bad and actually try it well, they'll be screaming loud enough to wake up the Sea Kings. He flashed a thumbs up like this was perfectly normal. Kakashi, after exactly 1 second of thought, nodded approvingly. "Efficient. Plus, we can use this island as a base. Always nice to have vacation spots with free security." Speaking of security, the mayor, a sweaty little guy who looked like he'd lost his morals along with his hair, was still trembling in the background. Kakashi gave a subtle hand sign and boom, mind control activated. The new mayor immediately saluted, starry-eyed like Kakashi had just offered him free ramen for life. Apparently, the guy had been working with Baroque Works, the sketchy underground group tied to Crocodile and some of Doflamingo's gang. Gross. But not a problem anymore. Still, Naruto didn't look satisfied. His eyes zeroed in on Bellamy, who had just managed to peel his face off the ground. "Ino told me all about you," Naruto said, crouching down beside him. His voice was calm, almost friendly if you ignored the part where he slapped 2 more seals onto Bellamy's chest. "You've done a lot of bad stuff, Bellamy. Time to make up for it." One was another blood prison seal. The second was way nastier. "Boost seal," Naruto explained as Bellamy shuddered. "Gives you Kurama's chakra for a power boost. You're 10 times stronger now." "You're welcome." Bellamy blinked, then promptly passed out. Classic. But Naruto wasn't done. He clapped his hands together and the ground rumbled. 2 massive sand golems erupted out of the Earth Knights with wings and lances, looking like they'd walked straight out of an anime crossover episode. "Each of M's got 10% of my chakra," Naruto said, grinning like a proud dad at a school play. "They'll guard the place." Cool, Shikamaru said, yawning. "Now can someone explain how this lunatic has a skill set bigger than our mission scrolls?" "That's when Naruto dropped the bomb. The training my clones do," he said, casually picking dirt out of his nails. When they pop, I get all their knowledge. Basically, I multitask hardcore. Dead silence, then Choji dropped his meat bun. Ino shrieked. Shikamaru looked like he wanted to cry. Man, and here I thought I was working hard, Lee muttered dramatically, wiping a tear from his eye. With their new fortress town secured, everyone jumped into action. Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino commandeered a few local buildings, turning them into sleek hotels and cozy restaurants. Shikamaru planned the logistics, boring but necessary. Ino handled aesthetics, because obviously everything needs to be fabulous, and Choji made sure the food was top tier. I volunteer as taste tester. Meanwhile, Ino, Hinata, and Sakura decided the place needed serious flower power. Ino whipped out seeds like a ninja version of Mary Poppins, while Hinata and Sakura used chakra to speed grow everything into lush gardens. Within an hour, Whiskey Peak looked less like a pirate's den and more like a vacation spot on a fantasy Instagram feed. Over by the cliffs, Guy and Lee had rounded up the pirate suffering from Naruto's happy little curses. Hour of youth. Lee shouted, handing out sweatbands. You shall redeem yourselves through push UPS and good deeds. The couple pirates fainted right there. A few others were already trying to escape, but the seals kicked in and they dropped like bad actors in a soap opera. Laboon, meanwhile, had found a kiddie pool someone left behind and was happily splashing in it like he was 5 tons of deadly adorableness. Even Niji, who was normally way too cool to get involved, was spotted leaning against a palm tree, looking half amused, half horrified. This is something, he muttered. Hiba, who was trying to teach Laboon to high-five with his flippers, nodded solemnly. Yeah. It's awesome. By evening, the whole island was buzzing with life. Pirates planting flowers, shady taverns turning into trendy cafes, and Laboon trying to cannonball into every fountain he could find. And for once, no one was stressing Naruto's crazy dream of a better world. Maybe, just maybe it wasn't so crazy after all. If you thought pirates screaming because of Naruto's be good or else seals was the weirdest thing happening that day, buddy, you haven't met Kakashi Haddock and his literary evangelism. With a suspiciously innocent smile, read. Up to no good, Kakashi sat cross-legged in the middle of the town square. I in his hands. The Holy Grail. A copy of Makeout Paradise. Reading is the key to expanding the mind, Kakashi said wisely, handing out copies like they were rare treasure maps. A bunch of rough-looking pirates, some with scars bigger than their brains, gathered around. They blinked at the books. Some poked them with their swords like the novels might bite. It's a romance. One pirate said suspiciously, flipping through the pages and immediately turning bright red. Educational material, Kakashi said smoothly. Very advanced. By sunset, half the pirates were sprawled around town like lazy cats, reading Makeout Paradise and sighing dreamily about love and stuff they barely understood. One guy even started sketching hearts in the dirt with his sword. Kakashi leaned back against a wall, hands behind his head, looking extremely pleased with himself. Another generation educated. Meanwhile, just off Main Street, Kurenai and Asuma had found a cozy little spot under a new cherry blossom tree, courtesy of Team Flower Power. They were enjoying a rare peaceful date, Kurenai sipping tea, Asuma lighting a cigarette and pretending he wasn't hopelessly soft on her. You know, Asuma said, watching a pirate accidentally trip into a flower bed, this town's already looking better. Kurenai smiled and reached over to straighten his scarf. It's all about planting good seeds and patience. Pretty sure she was talking about the pirates. Or maybe about Asuma finally proposing. Who knows? Not far from them, Tenten and Kankuro were knee-deep in wires, blueprints, and mechanical parts pulled from their ship. Okay, Tenten said, wiping grease off her forehead. If we reinforce the armor plates and add chakra conduits, we could totally make a Gundam. Kankuro's eyes gleamed like a kid who just found a ninja weapons store with a free samples policy. Yes. And rocket boosters. And a giant shuriken launcher. And laser fingers. Naturally, they needed power, a lot of power. Cue Naruto, who was poking a nearby cactus with a stick when they flagged him down. Hey, boss. Kankuro called, holding up a seal scroll. We need a month's worth of your chakra. Bless us with thy energy. Naruto blinked. You're making a Gundam, aren't you? Tenten nodded very seriously. For the glory of science. Naruto grinned and slapped his hand on the scroll, pumping it full of backup chakra he'd been saving in case of emergencies. Backup chakra. Because Naruto Uzumaki planned for everything now. Who even was this responsible guy? On the serious side of things, Gar resident Sandman and certified coolest kid at the political science fair had taken over the old mayor's office. Files were spread out everywhere. Maps, ledgers, secret correspondences with Baroque works, shopping lists for illegal weapons, you name it. Gara sat calmly at the desk, sifting through the mess and jotting down actual laws and policies on clean scrolls. His face said serious business. His Gord said, I am ready to crush anyone who interrupts this Excel spreadsheet of justice. At the edge of town, Naruto sat cross-legged on a rooftop, acting like he was just chilling. But inside. Full sage mode. The world bloomed in his senses, every leaf rustling, every wave hitting the shore, every shady merchant setting up shop 3 islands away. Naruto felt it all. His sage mode could now cover an entire country effortlessly, a gift he had painstakingly polished in the last month of training with Jiraiya. Funny enough, Jiraiya himself hadn't fully mastered Sage Mode before. It was Naruto's legacy, now the power of the universe itself swirling in his blood, whispering to him, guide it, shape it, protect them. He cracked one eye open, smiling faintly. Everything was safe. For now. Down below, pirates turned flower gardeners argued about fertilizer. Gai and Lee were organizing a Power of Youth festival, complete with compulsory interpretative dance. Bellamy, sweating through seals and mind control, was busy repainting tavern signs to say welcome to Sunshine Peak. And Naruto Uzumaki prankster, knucklehead, would-be peaceabringer sat above it all, feeling the excitement of a long journey ahead. You ever seen a barbecue hosted by a bunch of shinobi? Yeah, it's about as insane as you're imagining now. Add flower arrangements, pirate karaoke, and enough grilled meat to feed a small country. The night sky was splashed with stars. Someone, probably Lee, had strung fairy lights between palm trees and half-destroyed rooftops. The smell of roasting skewers, sweet sauces, and fresh bread filled the air. A few pirates were jamming with makeshift instruments, half in tune, half in total chaos. It didn't matter. Tonight was about joy. The music picked up. First, it was the safe stuff. Clapping, stomping, simple steps. But you can only keep ninjas contained for so long. Soon enough, people were dancing. Fenton grabbed Niji's wrist and spun him into the circle, grinning mischievously. Niji, calm, composed, perfect. Niji actually cracked a smile. He let her lead at first, but then showed he absolutely knew how to move. Apparently, genius prodigies were good at everything. Even not tripping over their own feet. Nearby, Kurenai was swaying with Asuma, the two moving like they were the only ones there. Asuma twirled her gently under the fairy lights, his cigarette forgotten behind his ear. Kurenai laughed a real, soft laugh that made the whole night feel lighter somehow. Ino had snagged Shino. She didn't seem to mind his bugs. Actually, judging by the sparkle in her eye, she thought he looked cool enough to show off with. Poor guy, looked like he might faint from overexposure, even though none could see except for Kiba, Hinata and Naruto. And in the middle of it all, Sakura found herself dancing with Naruto. It was weird, she realized, not uncomfortable weird. New weird because sometime, between Sasuke leaving and the insanity of everything else, she'd actually moved on. Looking back, Sasuke barely even talked to her. They had, 3 whole conversations in years. And none of them were romantic unless you counted HN as Shakespearean poetry. Honestly, Sasuke would probably marry Naruto before he ever held her hand. And speaking of, Naruto had changed. Like, seriously changed. He was taller now, head above her. His shoulders were broader, his arms were strong, his hair a little messier in a good way. He still had that same goofy grin sometimes, but there was something else too. A steadiness. A quiet strength. Sakura glanced up at him as they danced casual, light steps at first. He smiled down at her and said, "You look beautiful tonight, Sakura-chan." She laughed, feeling a little embarrassed, but also warm. He said it so easily now, not in that desperate puppy dog way he used to. It was a compliment, not a confession. Sakura smiled back, wondering where life would take them next. And then chaos. Kiba, who'd been whirling Hinata around with about as much grace as a hyperactive puppy, spun her too fast and Hinata went flying across the circle. Straight toward Naruto. Instinct kicked in. Naruto caught her smoothly, one arm around her waist like some kind of action movie hero. Hinata turned redder than the barbecue coals. Kiba grinned sheepishly and slid into Sakura's spot like he totally meant to do that. Sakura, rolling her eyes, but secretly amused, stepped aside and gave Naruto and Hinata a wink. The music played louder, the fire crackled higher, and laughter filled the island. Hinata froze in Naruto's arms for a heartbeat, her mind spinning faster than Lee during a drunken taijutsu match. Was this real? Was she actually here, being held by Naruto under the stars, the world around them glowing with music and laughter? For so long, she had loved him quietly, a secret tucked deep in her chest like a fragile paper crane. In her world, love had been dangerous. Back then, the Hyuga clan wasn't just cold. They were terrifying. They kept the Branch family under strict control. And they didn't exactly send please stop letters when something displeased them. If they found out little Hinata had feelings for a boy like Naruto, an orphan, an outsider, the village pariah, they wouldn't have punished her, they would have punished him. She'd seen at once kids who had bullied her on a snowy day, kids Naruto had bravely fought off. They disappeared. Not just the bullies, but their parents, too. Swept under the rug by the clan's silent hand. After that, Hinata had promised herself to keep her distance even if it hurt, even if it broke her heart 1,000 times over. Because she wanted Naruto to live. She wanted him to smile. She wanted him to be free. But no, she was here. The Hyuga clan didn't hold that power over her anymore. The old fears, the invisible chains, the crushing weight of the past, it had fallen away. Here, with Naruto smiling at her, the warmth of the fire reflecting in his blue eyes, Hinata took the leap she had always dreamed of. She pressed her hands together, summoned all her courage, and whispered, "I'm happy. Thank you for everything, Naruto-kun. I love you." The words hung there, shining in the night like fireflies. Naruto blinked. For a moment, his expression was so shocked it was almost funny, then his smile softened into something gentle, something kind. He didn't pull away. He didn't laugh. Instead, he placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "Thank you, Hinata," he said. I'm not really sure how I feel yet. I've been so busy fighting, training, trying to survive, I haven't really thought about love. He scratched the back of his head, a little sheepish, but honest. But I'm really happy you told me. And I'm glad you're here." Hinata smiled, a real, open, glowing smile, because it didn't matter if he loved her back yet. He was alive. He was free. He knew. And maybe, just maybe, the future would take them somewhere even better. They stood there for a moment longer while the music swirled around them and the world kept turning bright and full of endless possibilities. Chapter 7. Crocodile had barely been dragged off in cuffs before the vultures started circling, and by vultures, we mean the worst of the worst pirates who made normal pirates look like kindergarten teachers. Among them was Don Quixote Doflamingo, Mr. I wear sunglasses at night himself. If there was one thing Doflamingo loved more than chaos, it was cold, hard cash. And Alabasta, it was basically a glittering golden buffet just begging to be raided. So of course, he started moving in like a shark that smelled blood in the water. He wasn't dumb, either. He didn't send himself, no, he had minions for that. Enter Violet and Senor Baby. Yes, that was actually his name. No, nobody knew why. No, you were not allowed to laugh to his face unless you wanted a fist there too. Their orders were simple: take control of Alabasta, sweep up whatever Baroque works leftovers they could find, turn the whole kingdom into a giant Doflamingo-sponsored bank account. And if they found any other towns or strongholds along the way, they were to liberate them too, which, in Doflamingo speak, meant turning them into outposts full of dancing marionette soldiers and very, very unhappy citizens. As Violet and Senor Baby set sail, Alabasta's future hung in the balance like a sandcastle staring down at tsunami. And somewhere, far across the sea, Naruto dancing under the stars, laughing with friends, didn't know it yet, but another storm was already on its way. The meeting spot was a crumbling old mansion on the outskirts of Alabasta, the kind of place that looked like it had hosted one too many haunted banquets and was now just waiting for a lightning bolt to strike it for dramatic effect. Inside, the air was thick with dust, tension, and the unmistakable scent of "we're about to make a terrible decision." Miss Doublefinger, the new boss of what was left of Baroque Works, stood at the head of a battered table, arms crossed, nails sharp enough to pop a watermelon from across the room. At her side were Mr. Five, also known as Gem, because apparently naming yourself after jewelry was edgy, and Makita, Miss Valentine, who floated lazily above a chair like gravity, had personally offended her. When Violet and Senor Baby sauntered in, looking like they owned the place, the room went still. "You're late," Miss Doublefinger said coolly, her voice like ice water down your back. Violet just smiled, the kind of smile that said, "I know something you don't, and you're not gonna like it." She spun once for flair, because why not? And stopped right in front of Doublefinger. "You should be grateful we came at all," Violet said sweetly. "Without Crocodile, you three are about as threatening as a soggy sponge." Gem bristled and cracked his knuckles, little sparks popping from his hands. Miss Valentine just yawned and floated higher. "Listen," Senor Baby said, adjusting his shades with the slow confidence of a man who had never rushed anything in his life. "You guys can either join us and get a pair-ace grin, or you can stay independent and get crushed when the real players show up." Miss Doublefinger glanced at her teammates. Deep down, they all knew the truth. Without Crocodile, they were small fish in a sea of sea monsters. And while none of them liked Doflamingo seriously, the guy had a fashion sense that even they found terrifying. They liked the idea of being crushed even less. "Fine," Doublefinger said, her nails retracting slightly. "We'll work with you. For now." Violet gave her a dazzling, victory-twirling smile. "Smart choice." Alabasta might have been standing, sure, but if you looked closely, you could already see the cracks. Turns out, the only reason the place hadn't collapsed sooner was because Crocodile had been pretending to be a nice guy. And if you know anything about guys who wear giant fur-lined coats in the desert, yeah, they're not known for their compassion. So when Senor Baby and Violet decided it was moving day, the whole thing toppled faster than a card house in a sandstorm. Baroque Works grunt, some of them looking like they hadn't showered since the last rainy season, flooded the streets, brushing aside the guards like they were confused mall cops. It was tragic, really. Alabasta's army had heart, but heart didn't stop a guy who could swim through solid rock and punch a mountain into next Tuesday. Meanwhile, Violet and Senor Baby just strolled into the royal palace, looking like tourists about to leave a bad Yelp review. Senor Baby in his full baby Jetta pacifier and everything looked absolutely ridiculous. And somehow, that made it even more terrifying. The palace guards tried. Really. But one glare from Violet and a casual shoulder bump from Senor Baby later, they were out cold. The heavy oak doors to the throne room cracked open with a dramatic boom. The king stood up from his throne, sputtering royal-sounding outrage, but Violet silenced him with a single look sharp, cool, deadly. Within 10 minutes, the king was on his way to a dark damp cell somewhere deep under the palace. Alabasta officially had new management. Violet spun once, gracefully taking a seat on the throne like she'd been born for it, which, fun fact, she actually had. Being a princess back home made playing queen here almost boring. She patted the armrest, beckoning Vivi closer. Vivi hesitated, fists clenching at her sides, but Violet just smiled and tapped her temple. "I can read you, sweetheart," Violet said sweetly. "So don't bother plotting any hero moments." She gestured around the room where the few remaining royal guards were either tied up or bleeding from the mouth. "You see? We're not here to destroy your people," Violet said, flipping her hair like a shampoo commercial villain. "We just want the mines. The gold. The jewels. You behave, keep your people quiet, and maybe they get to keep their little sandpit without any more blood." Vivi's mouth opened, probably to say something brave and reckless typical, but Violet leaned forward. "And don't," Violet added, voice dropping to a razor whisper, "count on some rubber boy to save you." Violet's power flickered behind her eyes. She knew what Vivi was thinking. Hope. Trust. Luffy. She gave a soft pitying laugh. "Crocodile would have killed him if he wanted to," Violet said. "You think some idiot pirate who punches things is going to beat us?" Vivi swallowed, her face pale as desert bone. "Smart girl." Alabasta's fate was sealed not with fire and blood, but with quiet, humiliating surrender. And somewhere far out at sea, the Straw Hats probably had no idea that the kingdom they fought so hard to save was falling without a single shot fired. If you thought life in Alabasta was bad before, try working in a gold mine with Senor Baby supervising you. Picture this. Sweaty, sunburned workers in tattered clothes hacking at the rocky earth, their pickaxes barely making a dent, and looming over them, a giant muscle-bound man in a diaper chewing on a pacifier and shouting orders like a deranged daycare manager. "Faster, faster." Senor Baby hollered, his voice booming off the cavern walls. "You think gold digs itself?" One poor miner dropped his pickaxe from exhaustion. "Bad move." In less than a blink, Senor Baby swam through the solid ground like it was a kiddie pool, popped up next to the guy, and gave him a light slap which, thanks to his freakish strength, launched the man 5 feet through the air into a pile of gold dust. The other workers immediately picked up the pace. It wasn't that Senor Baby wanted to hurt people, probably it was just that subtlety wasn't really in his toolbox. Meanwhile, Violet stood at the mouth of the mine, shaded by a silk parasol, and looking about as out of place as a cat at a dog show. She tapped a delicate finger against her chin, eyes scanning the workers. "So much inefficiency," she sighed. "No wonder this kingdom was a joke." Still, there was progress. Slowly but surely, the mines were filling up with glinting piles of raw gold and precious jewels, the kind of hoard that would make even the celestial dragons jealous. Senor Baby wiped dust off his chiseled and very baby-oiled arms and grinned. "Maybe I'll build a giant gold rocking horse," he said dreamily, flexing for no one in particular. "Senor Baby deserves the best." The workers shared a look, the kind of look that said we're doomed but also don't laugh, he'll hear you. The worst part? The people had no choice. They weren't chained or whipped, that would have sparked rebellion. No, this was worse, they cooperated because Violet had promised them peace, food, a future if they just worked. If they didn't, well. Senor Baby was very persuasive. In the end, Alabasta wasn't being crushed by violence. It was being slowly smothered under the weight of gold, sweat, and fear. Somewhere deep inside, Vivi clenched her fists and swore that one day she would save them. But for now, under the desert sun and the sharp eyes of a grinning baby-faced monster, Alabasta had no heroes. Just survivors. Vivi knew it was a stupid plan, a desperate, reckless, one chance in a million kind of plan. But when your kingdom was being mined into oblivion by a man in a diaper, you didn't wait around for perfect plans. She slipped through the palace corridors with Pell beside her, his hawk eyes scanning every corner. The message, a scrap of paper no bigger than a playing card, was tucked into Pell's belt. If he could just make it to the sky. "Oh?" Vivi whispered, heart hammering. Pell nodded once and in a flash, wings sprouted from his back. His zone powers flared to life and he took off with a powerful leap, soaring into the desert sky. For about 3 seconds. Blam. The explosion cracked through the night like a god snapping his fingers. Vivi gasped as Pell's form twisted midair, spiraling, smoking, feathered wings limp before crashing into the dunes with a thud that shook the ground. No. She cried, sprinting toward him before a hand clamped down on her shoulder. "Wow, princess," Miss Valentine said, her voice as sweet as poison honey. "You really thought you were gonna pull a fast one, huh?" Vivi jerked away from her, but Valentine just giggled, twirling her yellow parasol like this was all a cute joke. Behind her, strolling casually across the sand, came Mr. 5 Gem holding a sleek new rifle. It gleamed under the moonlight, ugly and mean, smoke still curling from the barrel. "New toy," Gem said with a lazy grin. "Senor baby hooked me up. It's made special for my powers. Shoots little explosions like popcorn." He wiggled his fingers. "Pel's lucky I didn't feel like making fried hawk tonight." Vivi clenched her fists, fury and despair boiling inside her. Miss Valentine leaned in close, her breath smelling like mint and malice. "You really don't get it, do you, sweetie?" she whispered. "Violet already knew you were gonna try this. She read it right out of your head. Nothing you think is secret anymore." Her smile widened. "Did you really want to see Pel become fried chicken? 'Cause that's what would have happened if she hadn't been feeling merciful." At the edge of the dunes, Pel groaned weakly. He was alive somehow but grounded, beaten, broken. Vivi felt something inside her snap, like a rope stretched too tight. Miss Valentine patted her on the head like she was a naughty puppy. "Good girls stay quiet, Vivi. Good girls live. Think about it." Then she walked away, parasol spinning, leaving Vivi standing under the cold desert stars, fists trembling, heart shattering. Chapter 8. Back at Sunshine Peak, things had gone from abandoned island no one's heard of to busiest tourist trap this side of Reverse Mountain in about 2 days flat. Credit where credit was due. Naruto's team knew how to hustle. The old battered town was now bursting with life. New shops popped up overnight. Lanterns strung across streets like 1,000 little suns. You couldn't walk 10 feet without someone trying to sell you grilled Sea King on a stick, handwoven bracelets, or Naruto's personal favorite authentic Sunshine Peak t-shirts that, according to Kiba, smelled suspiciously like barn. They even went big with the advertising real newspapers' actual articles, a headline that read, "The Lost Island Found. Sunshine Peak awaits you." Niji still grumbled about the embarrassing photos they used. One where Naruto was caught mid-chew stuffing his face with barbecue. But that wasn't even the best part. Somehow, and nobody was exactly sure how, they had even rigged a makeshift transport system at Reverse Mountain. Normal people, actual civilians, could now cross the Grand Line without needing a death wish or a pirate ship the size of a castle. They had ferries, rope bridges, and even a weird water slide system powered by seals that Naruto personally blessed. Tenten said it was creative engineering. Niji called it a lawsuit waiting to happen. Still, it worked. And people came. Boy, did they come, tourists from both sides of the world, laughing, shouting, haggling, trying every local dish and buying souvenirs like the world was ending tomorrow. It was chaos. It was loud. It was alive. And as Naruto stood at the main plaza, hands on his hips, grinning like he personally built the whole place from scratch, he thought this might actually work. The sun blazed overhead. Thec sparkled all the way to the horizon. Music drifted from the market square, a fiddler and a drummer battling it out for tips. Kids ran through the streets with cotton candy bigger than their heads. Near the center of Sunshine Peak's new plaza, a crowd was starting to gather. The reason Kankuro. His incredibly suspicious amazing puppet extravaganza. Kankuro stood on a little wooden stage he and Tenten had hammered together overnight. Behind him, 3 life-size puppets spun and twirled, one juggling flaming batons, one breakdancing badly enough to cause psychic damage, and one trying, and failing, to play a trumpet. All without a single strand of chakra. "Ladies and gentlemen." Kankuro boomed, arms spread wide. His face paint made him look like some ancient warrior god who got lost and wandered into a circus. "Boys and girls of all ages. Have you ever dreamed of fighting pirates, bandits, or giant sea monsters?" the crowd murmured. "Without risking your precious little limbs?" Somewhere in the crowd, Kiba snorted into his drink. "Well, now you can." Kankuro shouted. He grabbed one of the puppets, a stout grinning one with boxing gloves, and made it punch a straw dummy across the square. The dummy's head exploded in a burst of hay. The kids in the front row screamed, half in terror half in excitement. Tenten popped out from backstage, waving a scroll. "No chakra needed," she announced, like a magician's lovely assistant if the magician's assistant also carried a flamethrower. "Exactly," Kankuro said. He looked like he was about to pass out from enthusiasm. "These puppets are powered by mechanisms. Springs, gears, levers, genius engineering. Even a toddler could use them. Especially a toddler. Who here has younger siblings they want to teach self-defense?" Several hands shot up. "And for a special Sunshine Peak limited time offer," Kankuro added, voice dropping dramatically, "you can learn to be a puppet master too. Imagine the possibilities. Fighting off bandits. Performing at festivals. Winning bar fights you would absolutely lose otherwise." Ino, standing with Shikamaru and Choji, muttered, "I give it 2 weeks before we get sued." Naruto just laughed from where he leaned against a wall. He had to admit it was impressive crazy, sure. But impressive. And judging by the crowd's reaction, kids begging their parents, a merchant already offering Kankuro a whole sack of coins, Sunshine Peak's first puppet dojo might just become a reality. Kankuro winked at the audience. Come on, folks. Be part of the future. Why punch someone yourself when a puppet can do it better? Cue another dummy getting karate chopped into oblivion. But the business setup, the ads in every newspaper from here to Marineford, Kankuro's idea and possibly a future international incident, and fresh log poses in their pockets, Naruto decided it was time for a team meeting. He stood at the dock, looking unusually serious. The upgraded ship, their pride and joy, floated behind him like some kind of ancient sea god's toy, its chakra cannons gleaming in the sunlight and chakra barriers humming like a giant cat purring in its sleep. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, a little awkward. So anyone wanna stay here? Live the quiet life. Sell hot dogs. Run a bookstore. We'll come back for you, promise. The crew just stared at him. Niji crossed his arms like a disappointed sensei. We are ninja. Tenten threw her hands in the air. And ninja don't retire. Even Kiba, who would rather nap than fight 90% of the time, shook his head. Come on, Naruto. Don't insult us. Shikamaru yawned, but even he muttered, might as well stick with you troublesome people. Naruto grinned so hard it was a miracle his face didn't fall off. That's what I thought. But the chorus of cheers and a few sarcastic claps from Ino, they all hopped onto their monster of a ship, now more weapon than boat, and set sail toward their next adventure. According to the log pose, there was an island not far off. An island with giants. Actual, honest to goodness, stomp on your house, hurl mountains for fun giants. Everyone was buzzing with excitement. Kiba was talking about wrestling. Tenten was already sketching out a puppet the size of a castle. Naruto, he leaned against a rail, the wind in his hair, eyes burning with that old fire. It had been too easy so far. Pirates, bandits, bounty hunters, they weren't even warm-ups. He needed something more, something that could actually fight back. Come on, Naruto whispered to the waves, the sky, the world sent something strong. I'm ready. Somewhere, across the ocean, fate grinned a sharp, dangerous grin. Sailing toward Little Garden, the wind in their hair, the world full of possibilities, and Naruto was bored out of his mind. Everyone else had something to do. Kiba was busy teaching Akamaru how to fetch cannonballs. Sakura and Ino were in some kind of fierce battle over who could cook dinner without poisoning. The crew Gaara was meditating with all the peaceful serenity of a ticking bomb. Even Shikamaru had taken up cloud watching like it was a serious career. Naruto. He needed something new. That's when he remembered something. Any time, back when he'd met the Grand Sage Toad, long story, involving way too much bug spray and a river that tried to eat him, the old amphibian had let slip that there were alternative versions of Naruto out there, Narutos who had done some seriously crazy stuff. One of them had created something called the Spiraling Ring, basically a Rasengan the size of a village that detonated from the ground up. Another had even used puppets to fight instead of getting his hands dirty. Naruto thought about it, fighting without having to break a sweat, launching megaton Rasengan bombs from a distance. Yeah, that sounded about right. So, he went straight to the only guy on board who could teach him. Kankuro. It didn't go as planned. No way. Kankuro cried, practically clutching his puppets like they were his children. You're gonna steal my whole thing. What's next? You gonna start painting your face and making snarky comments too? Naruto blinked. I could totally pull off the face paint. Stick to Tenten's stuff. Kankuro whined. Make a bunch of weapons or something. Leave my art alone. Naruto shrugged. Fine. Plan B. He turned to the ultimate big brother in the room. Gaara. Gaara gave Kankuro a look, you know, the I could crush your bones to dust without blinking kind of look, and said, in that deadpan, sandstorm voice. Teach him. Stop making excuses. Kankuro wilted like a week-old daisy. Fine, he muttered. But if he makes a puppet cooler than mine, I'm quitting the crew and becoming a professional card dealer. Naruto grinned so hard he almost fell overboard. Believe it. And so, the training began. How to make puppets, how to control them with chakra strings, how to set traps and hide weapons inside their bodies. Kankuro taught with the bitterness of a guy handing over his secret recipe to a guy who might win a gold medal for it. Naruto learned with the enthusiasm of a puppy discovering a new stick. At first, Naruto was pumped. He had all the tools, the attitude, and a pretty sweet idea for a puppet. He was thinking something huge like, crush your enemies underfoot. Huge. Kankuro reluctantly showed him how to weave chakra threads. Thin, delicate lines of power, almost like spider silk. Naruto stared at his fingers. Focused. Concentrated. And then. Boom. The deck shook. Half the ship tilted sideways. Sakura screamed from the kitchen. Kiba dropped a cannonball onto his foot. Naruto looked up sheepishly. Instead of delicate strings, he had blasted out chakra cables as thick as tree trunks. Kankuro buried his face in his hands. No. No. That's not how puppeteering works. Naruto tried again. Focus, focus, focus. Boom. A chakra net this time. He almost caught Shino in it, who simply walked through it like a ghost and gave Naruto a silent look of eternal judgment. After a few more ship-shaking disasters, Naruto slumped onto the deck. This is so unfair, he whined. Why didn't anyone tell me my chakra's too crazy for this? Pankuro sighed like he was explaining math to a hyperactive squirrel because everyone with eyeballs can see it, dude. You've got too much chakra. You can't control tiny threads, your chakra just explodes out. You'd need to make a puppet the size of a mountain with cables thicker than ship ropes to even use it properly. Naruto groaned. The giant puppet sounded cool until you realized you'd have to build it, carry it, and not sink every island you landed on. Pankuro patted him on the back, grudgingly stick to blowing stuff up with giant Rasengans. It's your destiny. Naruto nodded, half defeated, half proud. He could either spend the next 10 years trying to whittle his chakra into dental flosser, and this was the better idea. He could go pick a fight with Kurama, the nine-tailed fox sealed inside him, win an epic duel of life and death, and claim the fox's full power. Yeah. Totally casual. Naruto flopped onto his back and stared up at the clouds. Maybe later, he muttered. He wasn't quite in the mood to get eaten by a chakra demon today. For now, he'd stick with being the unstoppable human wrecking ball he already was. And with the island of giants looming ahead, that was probably for the best. Chapter 9. Naruto had officially given up on puppets. After his chakra threads nearly turned the ship into a floating fireworks factory and accidentally gave Lee a second haircut, he decided puppetry just wasn't his thing. I'm too awesome for strings anyway, Naruto grinned, stretching on the deck like a lazy cat. Let's do something cooler. Like monster fishing. And by monster fishing, he meant hunting kaiju-sized sea beasts with his bare hands. Because of course he did. So Naruto dove off the ship, splashed into the endless blue, and mid-air transformed into a massive chakra-reinforced killer whale, black and white, sleek and deadly, chakra surging from his fins like jet streams. Let's go, Laboon. He called in a voice that came out like a whale's battle cry. The giant whale answered with a deep booming song that probably translated to "Bring it on, shrimp." And the hunt was on. Together, the two black and white titans swam like torpedoes through the ocean depths, chasing down beasts the size of warships. Naruto used his water element to shape tidal blades and slicing currents, while Laboon relied on sheer brute force body slams that made the sea tremble. Above deck, Choji set up a massive cooking station like he was about to feed an army. He grinned, sharpening a cleaver the size of a car door. "Bring me something chewy," he shouted over the waves. Naruto took that as a challenge. He created shadow clones in the water, each one sprouting a dorsal fin and zooming off to scout prey. Thanks to clone training, he had long since mastered every element, but underwater, wind was less useful. So Naruto adapted, blending water chakra with animal instinct, fighting like a shark crossed with a ninja. Still, the real surprise came when Kiba dove into the action. "Boy. No fair ganging up on Laboon," he yelled, hopping onto the whale's back like it was a surfboard. He pressed a hand to Laboon's skin and channeled chakra directly into him. Laboon surged forward, eyes gleaming with renewed strength. Naruto, currently chasing a sea serpent the size of a bullet train, looked back and grinned. "Oh ho. You teaming up now? You're not the only sea hunter around." Kiba smirked. "Let's see who feeds Choji better." And for a moment, it was just fun. Whales breaching, chakra splashing, giant seafood being flung onto the ship where Choji whooped with joy and yelled for seasoning. Then they saw it. Everything stilled. Even Laboon stopped moving. From the shadows of a trench rose a creature straight out of a prehistoric nightmare. A sea king so big it made Laboon look like a bathtub rubber ducky. Its scales glinted dark green, its mouth packed with serrated fangs the size of spears. Its eyes cold, yellow, ancient locked onto Laboon. And it licked its lips. Naruto's whale eyes widened. Oh. Kiba cursed. "That's not dinner. That's a boss monster." The Mosasaurus-like behemoth let out a low rumble that shook the ocean floor and slowly, hungrily, began swimming toward them. The island of Little Garden loomed just over the horizon. And their appetizer just turned into a final boss. Naruto saw the Sea King rise a wall of wet prehistoric muscle and grinned like a kid seeing his birthday cake punch someone in the face. The thing radiated life force like a forest spirit on steroids. It looked like it could level a mountain just by belly flopping into it. Naruto's inner battle maniac practically clapped. Nice, he muttered. Then, totally serious, he turned to Kiba. "Yo, you got this, right?" Kiba blinked. "Wait, what?" Naruto gave a thumbs up and a casual backflip into the water, leaving only a splash and the sound of Laboon nervously humming. Kiba looked at the Mosasaurus. It opened its mouth, revealing rows of nightmare-inducing teeth. His nose twitched. His survival instincts yelled run. His ego yelled louder. "Akamaru." he shouted. From the waves, Akamaru sprinted toward him like a white blur on water, chakra holding his paws steady. He skidded to a stop beside Kiba, already glowing with power. "Buddy," Kiba muttered, "we're either legends or lunch." Akamaru barked, the kind of bark that translated to "let's make sushi out of that thing." "Eyes, we're jumping the fool," Kiba said, crouching low as claws burst from his fingers, his back hunching, body transforming. His eyes narrowed into glowing slits. His face shifted into something primal, part man, part beast, all attitude. Akamaru grew 12 meters tall, fur glowing crimson, chakra flaring like a bonfire. Even the ocean seemed to back away a little. And Laboon. Gentle Laboon with his singing and ship pushing and general wail why innocent snapped. A wild glint hit his eye. His mouth stretched into a jagged grin. Rows of sharp teeth unfolded like nature had finally reminded him. "Oh yeah, you're a whale. What did you guys do to Laboon?" Naruto's voice crackled through a water clone that floated nearby, munching on some takoyaki like he was watching a movie. Kiba didn't answer. His chakra spiked. All 3 beasts Kiba, Akamaru, and Laboon charged the Sea King like a furry torpedo squad. The Mosasaurus let out a guttural roar that turned waves into tsunamis. But Kiba wasn't scared anymore. He was in Yuzuka. And this was a pack hunt. The Mosasaurus let out a screech that made the ocean surface ripple like it was afraid. Kiba, Akamaru, and Laboon weren't impressed. "Alright, big guy," Kiba growled, crouched low on Akamaru's back. "Time to turn you into sashimi." But the synchronized roar and bark Kiba and Akamaru launched. Hangover Fang a jutsu so fast it looked like a blender on steroids. The two spun like twin drills, wind chakra wrapped around them in glowing coils, turning them into literal rotating spears of doom. The air whistled as the pressure cut through it like a banshee scream. They slammed into the Mosasaurus's side, wind-enhanced claws tearing through scales the size of dinner plates. But the Sea King wasn't just a giant fish with an attitude. It was a tank. It tank that hit. But the flick of its massive tail, it sent a shockwave through the ocean. Kiba and Akamaru got launched, their spiraling forms corkscrewing through the sky before crashing into the sea like rogue torpedoes. Kiba barely managed to grab Akamaru mid-air, flipping to protect his partner before splashing into the waves. Laboon moved. The once docile whale dove deep, bubbles boiling around him as chakra churned the water. Then boom. He rocketed upward, crashing into the Mosasaurus from below like a living submarine, sending it lurching into the air. The beast thrashed, twisting like a monster seal. The ship bobbed wildly in the distance, and somewhere Naruto's clone shouted, "Hey. Don't scratch the paint." Kiba popped up from the surf, panting, soaked, and with a black eye forming. "Akamaru, round 2. Akamaru barked, glowing with red chakra. "Yeah. Me too." They launched again, their bodies spinning even faster this time, slicing through sea spray and wind. This time, they didn't aim for the same spot. They zigzagged, harassing the creature's underbelly while Laboon circled, shoving the monster back up whenever it tried to dive. The Mosasaurus roared and twisted midair, slamming its tail like a spiked club. Boom. Kiba took the hit, grunted, and went flying. He ricocheted off Laboon's side and then smashed into the ship's deck, leaving a ninja-shaped crater in the wood. "Ugh," he groaned. "Tell my clan I died doing something stupid." Akamaru swam up beside him, howling defiantly at the monster. The Sea King turned to finish them off, its mouth opened wide, ready to make a Kiba-Akamaru sandwich. But Laboon wasn't having it. The whale rose up, chakra spiraling from his blowhole like a geyser, and body slammed the monster mid-lunge, knocking it off balance and giving Kiba a precious second. Round 3, Kiba spat, blood running from his lip. "We're not done." With another spin, the duo went full throttle, carving an X into the monster's shoulder as it screamed. The battle raged on. Water turned white with foam, the air shook with each impact, and the crew aboard the ship watched with wide eyes and popcorn in hand. Because honestly, this was better than anything on the Den Den Mushi broadcast. If disappointment had a face, it would have been Naruto's right then, palms glued to his face like he was trying to crush the memory of Kiba's performance out of his skull. Asuma stood with his arms crossed, a lit cigarette dangling from his lips that somehow hadn't been extinguished despite the sea spray. He watched Kiba and Akamaru bounce off the Mosasaurus for the third time like soggy chew toys. Finally, he let out a long tragic sigh like the kind a teacher gives when their student shows up to class without pants again. He walked over to Tenten, who was fidgeting with a rack of gear like a ninja garage sale. "You got claw gauntlets?" he asked casually. Tenten blinked. "Yeah, but they're not exactly beginner." Asuma was already tossing them. "Perfect." Kiba caught the gear mid-air, barely avoiding being beamed in the face. "Huh. Focus the wind on the claws," Asuma said, his voice as flat as Naruto's expression. "Really focus. You've been slapping that wind chakra on like it's butter on toast. You want to cut something tougher than a sandwich. Sharpen it. Condense it." Kiba blinked, and Akamaru whimpered like even he felt called out. Look, your speed is fine. You guys hit harder than most Chunin. But that Sea King. It's basically a mountain with teeth. Your chakra output should be ripping steel, not tickling it. Naruto muttered into his hands, I told him this 3 months ago. Hiba flushed. The crew was watching. Even Laboon was side-eyeing him. Laboon. A whale. He grumbled under his breath. Fine. Time to stop holding back. He strapped on the clawed gauntlets. They gleamed in the sun like they were hungry. For a moment, Kiba considered going full Cerberus mode, 3 heads, 3 mouths, no chill. But honestly, that might have been a little much. They were still within view of the ship's snack bar. Instead, he took a deep breath, poured more chakra into Akamaru, into his claws, until the gauntlets howled with wind. The air shimmered around them like a heat mirage, vibrating from the sheer pressure. Akamaru barked, his fur crackling with energy, red chakra radiating in waves. Alright, Akamaru storm style. They launched like missiles. 2 howling demons made of fur, fangs, and wind chakra. They zipped past each other, their rotations synchronized like twin drills on a warpath. The Mosasaurus opened its jaws to roar. Too slow. One clawed Kiba carved into its right side. Akamaru tore through its left. Wind screamed. Flesh split. Blood sprayed. Everywhere. The Sea King didn't even have time to process the betrayal by the food chain. Kiba and Akamaru met in the middle, crossing in the air like an X made of fury and chakra, and drilled straight through the monster. It shrieked as it was lifted into the sky, bleeding like a fountain over the deck. The crew screamed and ducked. Naruto made a water clone just to hold up a giant paper umbrella. Choji caught a drop on his tongue and muttered, tastes like tuna. The Mosasaurus hit the water with a splash so big it could have passed for its tsunami's evil cousin. Kiba and Akamaru landed on the deck in crouched poses, wind still spiraling around their claws, blood dripping like red paint. Barbarian status. Confirmed, Asuma muttered, finally cracking a smile. Good job, dog boy. Kiba looked up, panting. We done? Naruto grinned. Almost. Someone's gotta clean that mess. Kiba groaned. Please let that be a clone job. Kiba had barely caught his breath when he heard it, the cold, ominous sound of someone clearing their throat like they were about to deliver judgment from Mount Olympus. He turned. Neji stood there, drenched in blood. Not his blood. Monster blood. Fishy, warm, and absolutely rank. His usually pristine white robes now looked like a Jackson Pollock painting gone horribly wrong. His hair dripped like wet seaweed, and his eyes, oh, they weren't just Byakugan, they were Byaku gone murderous. Neji's voice was so calm it was terrifying, slipped me. Kiba opened his mouth. Neji raised one elegant eyebrow. Kiba closed it again. Behind them, Naruto definitely did not whistle innocently, while a clone quietly erased a suspicious banana peel off the deck. No one said a word about the suspicious trail of ramen broth leading to the scene. Neji's eye twitched. Then, without warning, he pressed 2 fingers against Kiba's shoulder. Hey, wait. Tap. The chakra seal hit him like a boulder. Kiba's entire system froze, like someone had just unplugged his battery mid-battle. His arms flailed. Hey. I can't move my chakra. What did you? Neji handed him a mop. I sealed your chakra pathways, he said with the emotionless finality of a vending machine, refunding your coins out of pity. You get it back when this ship stops smelling like the inside of a whale's stomach. But. And don't even think about summoning a clone. Kiba gaped. Akamaru whimpered and curled under a chair like he didn't want to be next. Neji turned away, muttering, white robes. White robes, Naruto. From the crow's nest, Naruto casually swung a leg and hollered down, hey Neji. Love the new bloody samurai look. Real intimidation vibes. Neji didn't respond. But Kiba was 90% sure the air itself just got colder. An hour later, Kiba was scrubbing the deck with all the enthusiasm of a grounded teenager cleaning the family garage. His mop clanked against a chakra cannon. His back ached. His soul wept. Next time, he muttered, glaring at a seagull, I'm using Cerberus mode. And I'm aiming for Naruto. From below deck, Choji yelled, Kiba. You missed a scale stuck to the railing. Kiba groaned. I miss when we just did D-rank missions. The sun glistened on the freshly scrubbed deck of the Azure Gale, gleaming like a new blade, thanks to one grumbling Kiba and his chakra-sealed punishment mop. The crew lounged about, enjoying the breeze, blissfully unaware of the rising storm brewing in the form of one very dignified Hyuga. Neji appeared at the center of the deck like a ghost conjured by rage and too much dignity. His robes were clean again, hair immaculate, posture regal. But his smile, that wide, serene, saintly smile, spelled doom more than any angry shout ever could. Captain Naruto, he called out gently, like he was inviting him to a tea ceremony rather than violence. Naruto, who was busy throwing breadcrumbs at Laboon, turned. Yo. Neji's hands were folded politely behind his back. Let's spar. Cool, we can do a team battle, me and Shadow Clone number 3 versus. No. Niji's smile widened. Naruto blinked. No. No jutsu. No clones. No weapons. No seals. Just fists. He tilted his head like a kindly librarian who was about to throw someone out the window for dog-earing a book. I believe the crew would appreciate seeing their captain's skills in their purest form. Hinata gasped softly from the sidelines. Tenten choked on her water. Even Kankuro peeked out from a hammock and muttered, "Oh no. He's pulling the gentle monster act." Naruto scratched his head, grinning. "You're seriously mad about the fish blood thing?" Niji just stood there. Bara, sipping cactus juice, murmured, "He's not mad. He's polite." That scared Naruto more. "Alright," Naruto said, cracking his knuckles. "No powers. Just good old taijutsu. You sure, Niji? You know I don't hold back, right?" "I insist." Niji bowed slightly. "And don't worry, I won't break too many bones." A few of the crew gathered around, whispering like fans watching a live pay-per-view match. Lee had set up a chalkboard with scores for Niji's noble smackdown versus Naruto's unfair luck. Bets were being placed. Hinata wasn't sure who to cheer for. Kiba shouted, "Kick his teeth in," while still scrubbing blood off the anchor. They stepped into the center ring, a drawn circle painted with raiment stains and pride. Naruto and Niji faced off. One smiling like a monk. The other grinning like a prankster who knew he was about to get wrecked and was still excited. No powers. No mercy. Chapter 10. Naruto eyed Niji like someone who just realized their vacation spa came with surprise ninja assassins. The Hyuga prodigy stood tall, graceful, and entirely too calm, like a polite guillotine about to drop. And the worst part? Naruto knew how this was gonna go. If you made a close combat power ranking chart of everyone on the ship, it was pretty straightforward. Guy was at the top. Because Guy was, well, Guy. If Taijutsu had immortal, it wore a green jumpsuit and screamed about the power of youth. Second was Kakashi, who only looked lazy until he kicked you through a wall while reading romance novels. But among the teens. That's where things got spicy. Niji was number 1. No debate. He was a walking anatomy lesson with the attitude of a disappointed teacher and hands sharp enough to shut down your chakra system faster than you could say ow. Lee was second. No chakra tricks, just pure dedication, leg strength, and a terrifying habit of kicking you into the stratosphere with a grin. Then came Naruto. Normally, he'd shoot up to number 1 with his signature move overwhelming numbers in chaos. The guy practically invented clone fu. His entire fighting style was designed around misdirection, combo strikes, and outlasting the enemy with relentless waves of Naruto brand punishment. But Niji had just banned clones. And ninjutsu. And weapons. And seals. So no shadow clones. No wind-enhanced uppercuts. No exploding Rasengan knees to the face. Which meant, "I'm going to get beat black and blue," Naruto muttered. "Excuse me?" Niji asked, still smiling. "Nothing." Naruto called cheerfully, flexing his arms like he wasn't silently writing a will in his head. "Let's do this, Mr. Polite Doomface." The crew leaned in. Someone passed popcorn. Choji had a front row seat with a giant bag labeled SmackDown Snacks. Kiba had abandoned his chores and whispered to Hinata, "You think we should stop this?" Hinata bit her lip. "I think it's already too late." The moment their bare feet touched the chalk ring, the air changed. The breeze died down. The crew quieted. Even Laboon, bobbing lazily beside the ship, stilled his massive bulk like he sensed someone was about to get humiliated in 1080p. Niji stood like a statue, elegant, spine straight, hands loosely at his sides, that insufferably polite smile still plastered across his face. You'd think he was modeling for a Noble Ninja Monthly magazine cover. Naruto cracked his neck and shook out his limbs, bouncing slightly on his heels. He wasn't smiling. He knew better. This wasn't a grudge match. It was an execution, and Niji was the polite hangman. Then Niji moved. Past. A single step, then a palm strike aimed right at Naruto's diaphragm, like he was ringing a doorbell that would shut down his entire nervous system. Naruto twisted, the strike grazing his ribs, and answered with a tight elbow toward Niji's jaw. Muay Thai, textbook sharp. Niji leaned back just enough, countering with a sweep of his leg low and precise, Bajiquin style. Naruto hopped, twisted in midair, and threw a spinning side kick, a taekwondo special. Niji slid under it like he was made of water, his palm brushing Naruto's calf. That touch alone would have burst a chakra point if they'd been using powers. Naruto landed, but Niji was already in his face. A flurry of palm strikes, bam 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 like pistons. Naruto blocked with forearms and wrist rolls, karate defense, trying to absorb the blows. He slipped inside and went for a judo throw, grabbing Niji's arm and shoulder. But Niji didn't budge. The Hyuga dropped his center of gravity, rotated with Naruto's grip, and used his own momentum to flip Naruto onto the deck with a graceful thud. Oof. Okay. Naruto wheezed. You're still a jerk. Niji offered no reply, just stepped back, giving Naruto the courtesy of standing. Naruto popped up and charged this time, switching styles: jab, cross, feint, low, uppercut. Niji weaved through them like he was underwater. He slapped the uppercut aside and hit Naruto with a knuckle tap to the ribs. Nothing showy, just a surgical strike that stole Naruto's breath. But Naruto was used to pain. And he was stubborn. He faked a stumble and caught Niji with a surprise hook. Whack. It wasn't clean, but it was solid. Niji blinked. The crew gasped. Naruto grinned. Told you I wasn't just wind and clones. Then Niji smiled. No. You're also very predictable. And just like that, Niji blitzed him. Palm to chest. Shoulder. Elbow. Knee. It wasn't a beating, it was art. Like Niji had memorized Naruto's entire skeleton and was checking pressure points off a grocery list. Naruto tried to parry. He tried to grapple. He tried to headbutt, because of course he did. But Niji flowed like wind and hit like iron. 10 seconds later, Naruto was flat on his back again, gasping like a fish. Niji stood over him, serene as ever. "A good effort," he said. Naruto wheezed. "You cough sound like my report card." Then Niji bowed. "Thank you for the match, Captain." And walked off. Naruto lay there for a second longer. "Did we all see that?" He groaned. "Yup," Kiba called. "That was amazing. 10 out of 10 faceplants." Even Kakashi muttered, "Niji's terrifying." I sniffled proudly. "My beautiful boy." Naruto rolled over and groaned, "I'm gonna make a clone punch him later." As Niji walked away, still not a hair out of place, Lee gave him a slow, respectful nod. "You were like a whispering hurricane of destiny, Niji." Niji didn't respond. He just gave a humble dip of the head, the kind monks do after delivering a spiritual awakening or a beatdown. Naruto finally staggered upright like a baby deer learning to walk on rollerblades. "Hinata," he croaked, "water, ice pack, and maybe a new spine." Hinata offered him a bottle and a towel, eyes wide. "You actually landed a punch." "Thank you." "See? Someone noticed." "Right before he turned you into a musical instrument," Kiba added. "I counted at least 3 gong sounds." "Sounded like a xylophone to me," Shikamaru murmured. "Kinda soothing, honestly." "Eyes," Naruto groaned. "You're all traitors." "Welcome to leadership," Kakashi said behind his book. "You get the title and the trauma." Laboon gave a sympathetic groan from the ocean. It somehow translated to. "Even I felt that." Just when Naruto was starting to contemplate retiring from being a shinobi to become a professional floor decoration, a heavenly scent wafted across the deck, warm, spicy, buttery, glorious. "Toji," he croaked, eyes glazed and sparkling. "Is that curry marinated yakitori glazed with honey miso?" Toji stood proudly in front of a buffet that could only be described as a battlefield of flavors. Grilled fish glistened like polished kunai, steaming bowls of rice towered like snow-capped mountains, and ramen buckets, not bowls, buckets lined the edge of the ship's rail like cannons. "It's all ready." Choji beamed, wearing an apron that read chakra first, questions later, and holding a spatula like a sacred relic. "Dig in. Calories are fuel, and we just had a boss battle." He wasn't wrong. Even Niji, who usually ate like a tea ceremony instructor, gave a respectful nod and took a plate piled higher than Kiba's ego. For Laboon, Choji had prepared whale-size portions, which meant stews in cauldron-size bowls, grilled kraken steaks the size of canoes, and what looked suspiciously like a seafood pizza, large enough to be used as a trampoline. Laboon gave a joyful bellow and slapped his tail on the water, causing a small tidal wave that drenched the side of the ship and 2 unfortunate genin. "Wait," Choji Shino adjusted his sunglasses, though they were already perfectly positioned. "Are those extra servings for you?" Everyone turned. Sure enough, tucked beside Laboon's buffet were several mountain-sized dishes stacked neatly like a feast for a small kaiju. Choji blinked. "Oh, that. Yeah. I'm just, stocking up. For my giant form, obviously." There was a pause. "You mean the partial multi-size jutsu?" Niji asked skeptically, one eyebrow raised. "Yup. Can't risk chakra burnout in mid-combat transformation," Choji said, nodding like this was obvious physics. "So I need the calories now. Like, now. All of them." "Aha," said Sakura, arms crossed. "Totally legitimate," said Rock Lee, already shoveling curry into his mouth. "Choji-san is a man of preparedness." Naruto grinned, staggering over with a tray stacked with meat skewers. "Choji, if this is your way of scamming more food, I respect it." Hiba leaned toward Hinata. "You think he's bluffing?" "I think we should never stand between Choji and his third plate," she replied gravely. Toji, unaware or unbothered by the suspicion, had already begun dual-wielding chopsticks and meat buns like a culinary ninja. "You're gonna thank me when I grow to the size of Laboon and crush a mountain." "Please don't," Asuma muttered in the background, eyes already measuring the ship's structural integrity. And so the feast began. The crew devoured food like they were racing for survival which, as ninja, they basically always were. Laughter broke out, stories of the battle were exaggerated beyond reason. Naruto was already claiming he dodged all but one of Niji's hits, which earned a side eye from literally everyone, and even Niji cracked a smile as Lee handed him a bowl of spicy udon with tears in his eyes from the heat. The sun set over the ocean, painting the waves orange and gold, and the ship bobbed gently in the glow of victory, full stomachs, and whatever terrifying dessert Choji had just wheeled out. Naruto licked sauce off his fingers, leaned back against the mast, and sighed happily. You know, maybe getting my ribs dislocated wasn't so bad after all. Then Niji walked by and dropped a pillow on Naruto's lap. For next time. Naruto blinked. You're a menace. Niji smiled politely. Sweet dreams, Captain. It started with someone farting. We're not sure who. The suspect pool was too strong. Kiba blamed Choji. Choji swore it was the whale. The whale, Laboon, just blinked at us like, I don't even breathe air, dude. But after the initial chaos of gagging and finger-pointing, boys' night on the deck settled into something that was, well, weirdly nice. There was the usual assortment of snacks: grilled squid sticks, spiced seaweed chips, and one suspicious container labeled Gaara's crunchy sand clusters, which no one touched. For reasons. Kankuro was showing off a puppet that looked like a cross between a giant crab and an air fryer. Shikamaru was lying down and not moving unless it was to lift food to his mouth. Lee was doing push-ups with one hand while reciting youthful poetry. Niji sat cross-legged, somehow managing to radiate smugness while drinking tea. Kiba and Akamaru were wrestling, badly. Shino was there. Probably. Hard to say. His hoodie had consumed most of his face. Naruto was leaning back against a crate, grinning at the stars like they owed him money. Man, he said suddenly, fights have gotten really easy lately. That got some looks. Easy? Kankuro asked, raising an eyebrow like he was hoping Naruto was kidding. Yeah, Naruto said, shrugging. After my last round of training, everything's been like boom. Over. Like, mini-boss level. The last guy I fought. I sneezed and he passed out. Gaara blinked. Was that a metaphor? Nope, Naruto said cheerfully. Pretty sure it was allergies. Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome. Kiba stretched, cracking his knuckles. That's not weird, dude. You're in the top 1% now. Naruto blinked. What? You heard me, Kiba said, tossing a rice ball at Akamaru like a treat. Top 1% of fighters. Top tier. Elite. Boss level, ninja. Naruto stared at him, stunned. Wait, I'm the 1% now? Me? Us? The 1%. He clutched his heart like he'd just been stabbed by a betrayal-shaped kunai. How the turns have tabled. We used to hate the 1%. They were the curse on the world. The selfish elite. The hoarders of power and money and badly tailored cloaks. The rest of the boys slowly turned to look at him. Judgingly. Choji frowned. See? I told you it was Naruto badmouthing us behind our backs. Dude, Kiba said, pointing a drumstick at him like it was a gavel, we've always been the 1%. You just didn't notice because you were poor and loud. Naruto squawked. Hey. Shikamaru yawned. I mean, he's not wrong. You live in the Hokage's house now, Niji added, sipping his tea. Kind of defeats the whole man of the people thing. Gaara nodded. I rule a country. Same, Kankuro said. Technically. I co-rule. Puppet court system. Long story. Lee paused mid-handstand. I've been featured in 5 fitness magazines. One was international. Naruto's jaw dropped. Wait. Are you all the 1%? Everyone nodded. Shino adjusted his glasses. Some of us more quietly than others. Choji popped a dumpling in his mouth and said through a full cheek, wealth, power, skill, connections, political influence. It's all there. Welcome to the club, Captain. Now stop acting surprised before Gaara seals you in a tax bracket. Naruto leaned back against the crate again, staring at the sky like it had betrayed him. We're the system, he muttered. Yup, said Kiba. Naruto groaned. Man. I really was the main character. Now I'm just a tax liability with muscles. Everyone laughed. Even Gaara cracked a smile, which was basically the equivalent of an earthquake in his home country. Kiba grinned. So. Still think fights are too easy, Mr. Elite? Naruto smirked. Nah. I just realized the final boss is probably gonna be some other 1% jerk with even better hair. Shikamaru raised a hand. Place bets now. Next fight. We get humbled. Or exploded, Choji said. Can I eat first? Always, said Naruto. And with that, boys' night resumed. With judgment, laughter, and a growing fear of what karma had planned next. Up on the main mast, perched on a platform barely wide enough for 4 adult-sized regrets, the grown-ups were having their own version of boys' night. plus Kurenai, who had exactly zero patience for any of their nonsense, and exactly one thermos of something suspiciously strong smelling. They weren't sitting so much as slumping, each one with a drink in hand, legs dangling over the edge, backs leaning against the mast like they were too tired to sit up straight. Below them, the boys were yelling, laughing, and arguing about taxes or destiny or possibly both. "Remember when we were like that?" Asuma asked, puffing lazily on a cigarette. "Vividly," Kurenai muttered, sipping her drink. "Unfortunately. I was never that loud," Kakashi said, flipping a page in his book. The wind threatened to rip it from his hand, but Kakashi had mastered the sacred art of single-handed page control. "Or that dramatic?" Kurenai snorted. "You wore a mask and read smut in public. That's drama." "Youthful enthusiasm," Guy declared, raising a thermos like it was Excalibur. "A burning fire that refuses to go out, no matter how many faceplants fate throws at you." "You realize Naruto's already talked himself into an existential crisis twice tonight," Asuma said. "And made a tax joke," Kakashi added. "That's how you know we're in the endgame." They all looked down at the deck, where Naruto was now dramatically pretending to be poor again, lying on the wood like he'd lost a war. Kiba was poking him with a stick. Choji was eating. Lee was yelling motivational slogans to no one. Shino appeared to be talking to a moth. Asuma exhaled. "I mean, they turned out okay." "They turned out amazing," Kurenai said softly. There was a pause. "I thought they were gonna die by, like, age 15, Kakashi admitted. "Same," Asuma said. I sighed wistfully. "I thought Rock Lee was going to challenge a cloud to single combat and disappear forever." "I hoped he would," Kurenai muttered. I gasped. Kakashi closed his book with a soft snap. "You know, I used to worry that we'd left them with too many burdens. That we pushed them too hard. Expected too much." Kurenai stared into her cup. "We still did." "Yeah," Kakashi said. "But they're laughing." And they were. Naruto had just tackled Kiba into a pile of blankets, and somehow Neji had gotten pulled into it, which made Choji cheer and Shikamaru groan, and Lee proclaimed something about the fist of friendship. Even Gaara looked like he was enjoying himself, which was about as rare as a lunar eclipse during a blood moon in an odd-numbered century. Asuma smiled around the cigarette. "Yeah, they'll be fine." Then a loud boom echoed in the distance, far enough not to worry them immediately, but close enough to guarantee trouble. All four grown-ups went still. Kurenai sighed. "You jinxed it." I stood up, heroic pose locked in. "A challenge. Our young flames are destined to blaze brighter still." Kakashi groaned. "I just wanted one night where we didn't get exploded." Asuma flicked his cigarette off the side. "Better stretch, old man. Looks like the top 1%'s getting audited." Girls' night was not a suggestion. It was a decree. Sakura had declared it with the kind of iron-willed authority that only someone who regularly punched boulders into gravel could manage. So the meeting room, a place normally used for things like tactical strategy or yelling at Naruto, had been converted into a sacred sanctuary of snacks, gossip, and passive-aggressive jabs. "Okay," Ino said, flopping onto a beanbag that definitely wasn't there that morning. "First order of business. How many shirts has Lee destroyed this week?" "5," Tenten replied without looking up from her nail file. "2 during training. 1 because he tried to bench press the ship's anchor. 1 got caught in a fire jutsu. And the last one just disintegrated during a pose." Sakura groaned. "That man is 85% eyebrows and reckless optimism." "Yeah," Ino smirked, "but like weirdly ripped optimism." Sakura threw a pillow at her. Hinata, curled up quietly on the couch with a teacup, giggled. "He really is trying hard though." Ino shot her a grin. "Still soft for the underdogs, huh, Hinata?" Hinata's cheeks went pink. "No. I think it's sweet." "Oh my immortal," Tenten muttered. "You're blushing." "She always blushes," Ino said, swirling her drink like she was at a high society gala instead of sitting cross-legged in her pajamas. I swear, she could see Naruto sneeze and her Byakugan would go fuzzy. Hinata covered her face with both hands. "Please stop." Sakura, now fully sprawled on the floor, sighed. "I feel like I'm babysitting sometimes. All of them. Especially Naruto. You know he fought Neji earlier with no powers." Tenten blinked. "Did he survive?" "Barely. Got folded like laundry." "I wish I saw that," Ino said dreamily. "Watching Naruto get reality checked is my favorite form of therapy." "You know what he said after?" Sakura propped herself up on her elbows. "He said, the fights are too easy now." The room went quiet. Then Ino howled. "He said that? Out loud?" "Yes," Sakura said grimly. "With his entire chest." "I'm gonna tell Tsunade," Tenten said. "That's grounds for extra paperwork." Hinata looked like she was trying very hard not to smile. "He's just confident." "He's just a disaster," Ino corrected. "I swear, if he wasn't cute." Sakura raised a hand. "Finish that sentence and I will dunk your face in the wasabi dip." There was a long pause as they all sipped tea or juice or whatever was in Ino's suspiciously fancy-looking glass. For a moment, they just existed, warriors off-duty, girls off-script, floating on the gentle rhythm of the ship and each other's company. "I like this," Hinata said softly. "Us. Talking." "Same," Tenten said. "No explosions. No missions. Just vibes." Ino pointed a finger. "And no boys allowed." Then the door creaked open. Sakura didn't even look. "Naruto, if you walk in here, I swear to all the kami." "Sorry," came a muffled voice. "Just checking if there were snacks left." Sakura picked up a kunai, looked him dead in the eye, and smiled. Naruto slowly closed the door again. "Girls' night. Preserved." "Honestly," Ino said, tossing a grape into her mouth, "we're the only sane people on this boat." Hinata giggled. Tenten raised her drink. "To survival." Sakura clinked her cup against hers. "And to never letting them know we're the smart ones." They toasted. They laughed. They basked in the temporary peace. Because deep down, they all knew. Tomorrow, the chaos would return. But tonight, the ship belonged to the queens. The little garden loomed ahead, as if the name were a cruel joke. The island was massive, ancient, and totally not little. But at that moment, the peaceful night on the ship was interrupted by a thunderous noise that made everyone's teeth rattle. A sound like thunder, but sharper, faster. And then, a giant spear, no, a missile flung out of the island, streaking through the sky like a lightning bolt on steroids. Everyone on the ship froze. The spear was spinning through the atmosphere at a ridiculous speed, faster than a jet. It was like a javelin thrown by a mortal with a very bad temper. If it hit, it would probably leave a crater the size of a small country. In the chaos, one thought crossed everyone's mind. Why is there a spear coming from the island? And then the answer came, loud and clear. "I can't sleep." A booming voice yelled from the distance. "Ori, not again." Another voice, equally as loud but more exasperated, shouted. That was when they all realized what was happening. Ori, the giant who lived on Little Garden, had been having a hard time sleeping, so he decided to throw giant spears just for fun. As if that was a totally normal thing to do. Maybe he was practicing for a championship in spear throwing 101, or maybe he was just bored out of his mind. Either way, this was not an ordinary spear. The thing was hurtling toward them, faster than a ballistic missile and scorching through the atmosphere, creating a trail of fire behind it. It was like the spear was pissed and was determined to make a dramatic entrance. The adults, on watch as usual, were the only ones who noticed it. They were the only ones who could see the terrifying, inevitable collision about to unfold. But before anyone could say what the heck are we supposed to do? Guy appeared. No warning. Just Guy. Like a bolt of lightning himself, he jumped into the air with a single spin, his legs shooting up so fast that if anyone had blinked, they would have missed it. With a single perfectly timed kick and explosion of energy and pure muscle, the massive spear shattered mid-air. It disintegrated in a burst of flames, leaving nothing but a trail of sparks and smoke. And then Guy did something insane. He didn't just stop. No. He ran. He ran on air, his legs blurring with the speed of 1,000 races. He was charging toward the island, effortlessly running across the sky as though gravity didn't exist for him. The rest of the adults watched in awe as Guy darted through the air, his wild hair flying behind him like a superhero from another world. "Should we help?" Asuma asked, blinking in disbelief. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. "Nope. Guy's got it." And with that, Guy kept running. The sheer speed of his movement was almost hypnotic, a blur of green and fire, as he shot across the sky like a man who had no concept of limits. He was already over the island's massive cliffs before anyone could even comprehend what was happening. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Naruto stood up from his perch on the railing, looking thoroughly unimpressed. "Seriously?" he muttered. "That's what you call impressive? PFFT. I can run like that in my sleep." Shikamaru, ever the observer, raised a hand lazily. "Sure, Naruto. Whatever you say." Naruto threw him a look, but before he could retort, the whole ship shook. The crew turned to look back toward the island. I had landed. And, for a moment, all was still. Then came the sound of giant footsteps. With Guy's special greeting to Dory, they were about to witness one of the most chaotic, destructive, and totally over-the-top fights this crew had ever seen. And it was going to be glorious. What if Naruto watches a One Piece end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.